Good morning. Today is May 12, 2025. It is 9:42. This is the Budget and Public Employees Committee. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Present.
Alderman Devotie.
Present.
Alderman Browning.
Present.
Chair Aldrich.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. We have 4 present. We have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With quorum being established, moving on to item number 3, which is approval of the minutes. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, May 5th, 2025, Tuesday, May 6th, 2025, Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, and Thursday, May 8th, 2025.
I move that we approve the minutes from May 5th through May 8th.
Second.
The motion was made by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded from the Alderman from the 5th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Devotie.
Aye.
Chair Aldrich.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. We have 4 aye votes.
With that, we have approved the motion to approve the minutes from Monday, May 5th through Thursday, May 8th. Item number 4 is board bills for review. Today, we'll be reviewing board bill number 1, which is the City of St. Louis budget bill, fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025. There's no resolutions for review, and for committee discussion today, continuing with board bill number 1, we will hear from the Civilian Oversight Board, which is here today, which will cover the COB and DFOB. And then around 10:30, we will hear from NIS, which is Neighborhood Improvement Specialist, and the Citizen Service Bureau. The committee will take a short break. Rumor has it that lunch will be on the chair today. And then item number 3 will be the Department of Parks, Recs, and Forestry. So kicking off item number 1, we have the Commissioner from the Civilian Oversight Board. Madam Commissioner, if you can just state your name and the department you're with, and you may proceed with your presentation. Could you make sure your mic is on, Commissioner? It's a little button right there. Yes, ma'am. And did you have a presentation sent over?
Yes, we did.
Okay, one moment. Madam Clerk, do you have the presentation from the Commissioner? While we wait, if you just want to state your name and the department you're with. I know you're fairly new, but it sounds like you're already hitting the ground running. Then maybe also introduce some of your staff members that you have to make the department go.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman Aldrich. My name is Commissioner Dr. Barbara Milan. I'm 5 months into my new position. And joining me on today are our staff members, Louisa Lyles, who is our Senior Investigator 2, Ruby Lyles, who is Executive Assistant 2, Ophelia Hughes, our Program Manager, and Dotlin Badesi, our Government Analyst.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. I think just for the record, you combined Ms. Ruby and
Louisa?
Louise's last name together, but I know what you
Okay.
meant.
Thank you.
It's still early.
It's early, and this is my first budget presentation.
Oh, no problem. If you give us one moment, we're getting the, did you send that over to the board? Okay. Are you able to, or is somebody able to send that over to the BOA clerk email? And if
We will send it to you. My understanding is that it did come to the city as well as to the Department of Public Safety. And so I apologize. We do have, I believe, some extra copies of the presentation, but my staff person has stepped out.
Okay.
Will you make sure that Ophelia, did you bring extra copies? Give us a second.
No problem.
And Ophelia, can you arrange to email the presentation as well? Okay, but you do have a hard copy?
Okay. So we'll make sure we get that over later so that it can be in the drive for all members. And when it is sent, just send it to BOA meetings at stlouis-mo.gov so our clerk can be able to have that. And while we wait for the extra copies, we probably can go ahead and get started and try to follow along as best as possible.
Okay. The mission of the Division of Civilian Oversight is to strengthen the integrity and increase public confidence in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and detention facilities located within the city of St. Louis by promoting transparency, fairness, and public accountability through impartial and independent professional standards and inquiries and investigations into allegations of misconduct and use of force. The Division of Civilian Oversight currently has 11 employees that consist of my role as the commissioner, the investigative team, and the administrative team, all working together to provide support to Detention Facilities Oversight Board and the Civilian Oversight Board. Pursuant to 590.653 RSMO, the Division of Civilian Oversight shall have the power solely limited to receiving, investigating, making findings, and recommending action, disciplinary action upon complaints by members of the public against members of the police and/or detention facilities that allege misconduct involving excessive use of force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, or use of offensive language, including but not limited to slurs relating to race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. Ordinance 71749 tasks our office with producing policy research recommendations, supporting surviving families, conducting community outreach, providing administrative support to investigators, the COB and DFOB, and with the personnel department, so that requisite documentation to execute discipline, including but not limited to suspensions, reduction in pay, demotions, forced leave, and terminology. I think since I have been on board, Mr. Chair, that we have been successful in scheduling monthly meetings with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. We also have monthly meetings with the Detention Facilities Board. We requested 1656789 for this budget cycle, and the proposed budget was at 1126450. So that's a reduction of a little over $500,000. And it also would impact our capability to have additional staffing, specifically staffing that supports community engagement, which is one of our strategic goals. Community engagement is crucial for fostering stronger and resilient communities. It provides a platform for participation, for diverse voices, that they are heard, ensuring that marginalized groups have a say in decisions. It contributes to building trust and strengthens relationship. We really would like the city to reconsider its non-support of that position and considering granting us support for that staff position. The budget, the city budget, has suggested that we not have funds for facility and grounds, and we're okay with that recommendation. We are responding to a need for safety with office. Our staff have expressed to ensure staff safety concerns were addressed. We have met with the facility manager, and we have agreed upon a renovation that will be provided in our current budget. So the reduction of this budget line item of $16,000, we accept that. The budgetary support for membership fees, certainly we can say this contributes to our support for community engagement. Specifically, I was seeking to have support for the Leadership St. Louis program, which is a 9-month program focused on leadership and engagement within the city of St. Louis. As a new commissioner and resident to the city of St. Louis, I believe Leadership St. Louis provides the opportunity to explore community outreach, civic leadership, and safety within the city of St. Louis and contributes to our outreach within the community. That was a reduction of $6,000. The Division of Civilian Oversight has a good working relationship with the City Councilor's Office. The City Councilor's Office faces potential conflicts of interest when representing multiple departments because the interest of different departments may diverge, creating a situation where the lawyer's duty to one department could potentially conflict with their duty to another department, or in this instance, with our office. This budget line item was not funded in the new budget cycle. Independent legal counsel offers several advantages, including providing unbiased legal advice, personal service, with a focus on the Division of Civilian Oversight, the Civilian Oversight Board, and Detention Facilities Oversight Board to protect our interests and to manage risk appropriately. We have here community outreach, and I've talked about the importance of community outreach. The client service position was eliminated from the fiscal 26 proposed budget. This position is crucial to our office for engaging the public and providing support to surviving families, those impacted by the allegations of misconduct, and for conducting community outreach to impacted communities. The client services coordinator is crucial for supporting the handling of resources, managing client relationships, and ensuring client satisfaction and contributing to the mission of the Division of Civilian Oversight. So we are seeking to maintain the positions of Legal Investigator 1 and Legal Investigator 2 that have been eliminated from the fiscal 26 proposed budget. Investigators are needed to address the backlog of complaints and to address the continued number of complaints received within the city. I wanted to identify the number of complaints that we received in 2024, and I'm going to ask Louise to come up to provide that information and also to provide the information on the current number of complaints that we have right now.
All right, Ms. Lyles, again, if you can just state your name. There's a little thing at the bottom.
Because I'm so short, you know.
Oh, we done upgraded. We could twist it and bring it on down to your height, but if you want to hold it, that's fine.
I'll hold it, it'll work fine.
Just state your name and then your position within the department.
My name is Louisa Lyles. I'm a legal investigator too with the St. Louis City Division of Civilian Oversight.
All right, may proceed when you're ready.
Okay. I've been asked to speak about the number of complaints that we have received. The total number of complaints we have never covered the complaints from the Justice Center as well as the police department comes to 753 total. In 2000, let me put my glasses on quick. In 2000, I'll speak on the police complaints first. In 2021, we received 155 complaints pertaining to the police. In 2022, we received 126. And 2023, we received 181, and 2024, we received 197. To my knowledge, right now, we have about 75 complaints covering 2025 right now. For the detention facility, we have received in 2022 was 26 complaints, 2023 was 35 complaints, and in 2024 was 33 complaints. Any questions?
At the moment, we wait to the presentation. And is that number of complaints in the packet somewhere, or is that just the numbers you're just reading off of?
I'm reading those numbers off, but if you go to our website.
You can speak in the mic.
If you go to our website, we have updated our DFOB, Detention Facilities Oversight Board, report up to 2023, so it'll reflect those same numbers for up to 2022 and 23. And for the COB, we have our annual reports covering from 2020 to 2023, and you'll see the numbers reflected in that report as well if you go to our website.
Okay, thank you so much.
Alderman Aldridge, that concludes my part of the presentation. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Commissioner. I will just start in order of seniority, starting with Alderwoman Tanya. She's still online?
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for all of your service to the department.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
She did, so we'll give her a little, there she goes, she's trying to come back.
Sorry,
So-
thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I didn't ask the question. I was just thanking you for coming to join us today and for the work that you've done in the department to get started.
Very happy to be here, and we appreciate the opportunity.
I do have a few specific questions, some of which you kind of alluded to already. But I was just wondering, given the decrease in your budget, are there any specific programs and initiatives that will have to be scaled back or eliminated due to the cut?
We will continue to focus on our core programs. We, however, in terms of our outreach, that will have limited capacity and/or members of our staff, including myself, having to team up to do what we can to connect with the community. We really want the community to have the information regarding complaints. I appreciate your question because it allows me to inform you. In addition to the reports that Louisa identified that are on our websites, we are planning to add a dashboard to the website. That dashboard will specifically identify the data related to the complaints, the status of those complaints, if they were sustained or if they were closed. So it will be another tool using technology for us to provide information.
Thank you. The other thing that I noticed in your budget is that you actually are going to go from 17 in fiscal year 25 to a proposed 12 in fiscal year 26. Do you know if this budget as proposed was passed, what roles specifically would be impacted by that reduction? And will any of those roles have an impact on the Civilian Oversight Board's operational capacity and their ability to fulfill their duties?
You know, I'm very concerned about our complaints and the number of complaints that we are receiving. So yes, it impacts our capacity and ability to respond in a more a more time-sensitive matter. So I think the good thing is this year we were able to publish the 2 reports. That report only gets us to 2023. We are working now to get the data for 2024, and that data will be available this year. So we're in the cycle where we're catching up.
So how long, do you know an estimated window right now of when you get a report, how long it takes you, when you get a complaint, how long it takes you to carry that through to the finish line with the staffing capacity that you have now?
I'm going to ask Louisa to speak to that.
As it currently stands right now, we're not able to take it to completion because you know what. As it stands right now, we're not able to take it to completion because we have not had a ability to have a board meeting with the DFOB and the COB where we can present our complaints. The process is which when we receive a complaint in our office, with the, say, a COB complaint, which is a police complaint, we forward that over to the Internal Affairs Division. Internal Affairs actually does the investigation themselves because we do not, one of the things that the commissioner did not speak on was the fact that we're trying to get Regis, and that would cost us some money too as well. So that's something that's not in our budget that we would possibly need, as well as the investigators and other staff members need additional training. So let me get back to what I was talking about a few minutes ago. When Internal Affairs receives the complaints, they do their investigations, they forward them back to our office. We currently have 4 investigator 2s and 1 investigator 1. So when I say that 753 case backlog, you can see that it will take quite a bit of time to review those cases. Also, when we review them, we have to present them to the board. And for a period of time, the COB and the DFOB board members had to be chosen because the board had not, COB had not met in about over a year and a half. So a lot of the members had to be, new members had to be chosen, and DFOB was relatively new. So they're in the process of finishing up their training. So next month, we'll be able to start presenting cases. But I will say this, with 753 backlog, you can see how long it will take to get through all those cases, and considering the fact we are still getting cases daily.
Understood. And do you guys, your Regis access, is that in your budget? Was that in your proposed budget somewhere?
We did have it in the proposed budget, but it was taken out.
And do you remember what your, what that cost was? Or
No,
maybe you
the
can
commissioner,
find that.
the commissioner can speak on that.
It is $10,000. One of the related issues with Regis, as I understand, before I came on board, the office was attempting to secure Regis, but the office had to respond that our office was not in the category that they would consider to allow us to have that investigative computerized program. However, I have researched the Regis website, and on the Regis website, one of their components is government. And I have provided in writing to them, we are a city office, and we should have access to that computer program to support the investigative quality and access to information by our office.
Okay, and I just also wanted to clarify that you guys were asking in your proposed budget, the ask for the independent legal counsel was $75,000.
We did get approval, but that amount is not in the 2026 budget.
But that is the amount you would need. I just want to clarify that that is a sufficient amount for you to, you feel like that's a sufficient amount for you to be able to obtain independent legal counsel?
You know, I think it's imperative that we have independent legal counsel, and that is not to say anything negative against city councilors' offices. I just think that,
I understand. I
Okay.
just, Yeah, I'm really just wanting to make sure that that I'm reading your proposed budget correctly. That $75,000 is the correct amount that would allow you to be able to afford access to independent legal counsel. I
That
agree
is
that,
correct.
okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then I guess really one of my last questions is just, are you all, the functionality of you all's board, is there anything moving to under state control? How does that impact the civilian oversight board, or what shifts would that cause you to have to make?
Again, a very good question. One of the things that we did in light of the state's actions was to make sure that the work plan for the Civilian Oversight Board was consistent with the 4 categories that the state has identified. We had a lot more extensive work plan, but the work plan now is consistent with the activities of oversight. We recommended to our COB that we take out the community engagement activities from the work plan. So the community activities is a separate document that the board, I believe sincerely, wants to follow up on over the next year, but we are not identifying it in the work plan.
Understood. And similarly, I'm curious about, given that we're under state control and just given your shorter budget, could you talk about what interdepartmental collaboration looks like, how you all plan to coordinate with other departments, given these shifts that we have, to ensure that there is kind of cohesive and comprehensive oversight, and any plans that you have to improve interdepartmental collaboration?
The fact that we've been meeting with the police department on a monthly basis, as well as the City Justice Center on a monthly basis, we are having that outreach. On today at 11:30, we have our first roundtable that's scheduled, and we have made sure that various city departments have that information. My intent is in the near future to reach out to some of the other city executives so that they have our reports, so that they know what our role is. I certainly subscribe to collaboration and working partnership.
Thank you so much. And I will also encourage those reports to be shared with the Public Safety Committee. The chairman is the vice chair, so I'm sure he could give you more information, but I think it might be good to send that maybe to the chair of Public Safety, and he could send it to the rest of us, but I think it might be good for us to be able to see those, get those reports sent to us as well.
Point well taken.
Okay, and then I just had a question. We've had a lot of conversation around access and training and access to information. To your knowledge, have the ongoing issues regarding Civilian Oversight Board members' access to necessary information and to training, have those issues been resolved? Is the board fully trained now?
We have one more training. We have identified the trainer, which will be Jamala Rogers. That last training will require that our staff as well as board members attend that training. I don't have the exact title, but it is related to communities of color and how we interact with safety, such as the police or the City Justice Center. I think all of our board members just recently completed a series of training that was actually provided by the City Justice Center. So very soon, we will have 100% fulfillment of the required trainings.
Do you have a date of when that training is or will be, or an estimate?
I don't have the date in front of me, but what I have discussed with Ms. Rogers, she gave us about 5 different dates that we will have this next last training the first part of June. I can provide you the date.
Okay, which I appreciate having some kind of timeline too. I think June is helpful, and I definitely think yeah, I think a lot of members of the public would like to see us reach that point where everyone's trained and can have full access to do what they need to do. You kind of already spoke about just community engagement and transparency, which was what my last kind of question was going to be around, just activities to build public trust. But I think that I've kind of already gauged that the budget that is currently being proposed would kind of limit some of your abilities to do some of that community engagement work. So that actually completes my questions. Thank you so much. It was, I appreciate getting this information. And
Thank you.
Alderman Browning?
Thank you, and thank you for coming before us today and answer questions about the budget. Let me start by saying that I think oversight is extremely important. It's especially important when we're dealing with a body that has the power to determine life or death, to arrest people, to put them in detention, to keep them in conditions that may be detrimental to their health. And we've certainly seen our share of that in the last few years with sometimes devastating results. I think that we need to make sure we have that kind of oversight. But when we look at the actions that the state has taken, which for the record I believe are not only unconstitutional, but also detrimental to the future of the relationship between the police and the people that they are supposed to protect, I think that the investigative and disciplinary procedures that they provided for under that bill have really limited what oversight we can do here in the city. And that is putting aside the roadblocks that have been put in front of your board for the past couple of years. One question I had for you was, you're requesting independent legal counsel. I understand in the past why both the Civilian Oversight Board and the Detention Facilities Oversight Board could not use the city councilor, because the city councilor was also representing the police. But now that the state has taken over, is there any reason why this board cannot use the lawyers that we already have at the city?
We have representation at our board meetings with Barbara Burkett. And I hope you don't mind me using her name. And she has been responsive as it relates to inquiries we have. If you don't mind, Ruby, can I ask you to come up?
Just for the record, Ms. Ruby, if you state your first and last name and your position within the department.
My name is Ruby Bonner. My official position is Executive Assistant. I have been utilizing, however, the title of Deputy Commissioner per the former Director of Public Safety.
Gotcha.
That's why you might see that in one of the publications that have been distributed.
Gotcha.
Could you speak to legal access?
Okay. May I hear the question again?
The question was, previously, before the state took over the police, there was a conflict of interest in the city councilor being used by the Detention Oversight or the Detention Facilities Oversight Board or the Civilian Oversight Board, because the city councilor would have to represent both the police and the body that was investigating the police. With the state takeover, now the state is taking over the legal defense, and in my opinion, it has not budgeted enough. But they are taking over the legal defense, meaning that the city councilor no longer has that conflict of interest. In this budget, you've requested funds for independent legal counsel, but I'm wondering, is there an option to use the city councilor now that there is no?
Well, I think a lot of that will depend upon the direction that the appointed commissioners will go into relative to oversight. I would say that at the outset. The Attorney General for the state would then be representing the police department with respect to whatever legal issues that might arise. I am not certain what role the city councilor's office will be able to play in light of that factor, the fact that the Attorney General will be the legal representative for all things associated with the police. even as it relates to what the city council's office has been able to do in the past. And so before we have any real definitive answer about what direction that might go, we'll need to wait to see how oversight will be incorporated into the takeover.
And my concern here, and thank you for that answer, I think my concern here is that the oversight as designed in the state takeover can be summarized as none. And that they are going to oversee themselves with their own rules from their own police manual. And as you've noted, the current process right now involves collecting complaints and then referring them to the internal investigations at the police. How many investigations are you getting back where you've indicated that there has been wrongdoing and that there has been disciplinary action been taken?
That's a Louisa Lyles question.
The investigative staff, when we receive those complaints back, we do review them, and we review them and look at all the federal laws, state laws, and the city ordinance that pertain to whatever violation the police officers have made. And we have found several of them which we will be presenting to the board, and it will be not in agreement with the police department. So until we actually have a meeting, because the board has the final say on that, whether or not they agree or disagree with our findings or the police department's finding, but we are finding quite a few that will not be sustained where they may have sustained them.
When you say that they will not be able to be sustained, you mean the complaint would be able to be sustained, which means that it's true, or what, can you define what you mean?
What I'm saying is that we may have a complaint that we get back, because we're getting quite a few of them back from Internal Affairs. And I also want to say, currently, the commissioner talked about us having meetings with the police department monthly. Also, when the complainant files a complaint, Internal Affairs is also requesting that our investigative staff come over and sit in on their interviews when they interview the complainant. So that's something that's continuing. It's a good process there. What I'm saying is when they give us back their reports, we look at their investigative overview that they do. We look at camera footage, we look at medical reports, we look at police reports, and we also go out and do our own additional inquiries into certain information. And so we generate a report at the end as well. Some of those reports we're getting back now, we're not in agreement with totally with the police department's, their findings. We're finding that there's some additional violations in conjunction with what they already have identified.
So do we expect Internal Affairs to continue to refer cases to the Civilian Oversight Board now that the state has taken over?
Unless the state specifically prohibits it, I would expect Internal Affairs would still provide us that information.
Thank you. Good answer, and I hope we can continue to have some oversight. Moving on to the detention facilities oversight, I did get your report, and I appreciate it. Was able to weave through it, and one question I had was in 2022 and 2023, both the complaints received and the complaints that remain open. 2022 is 26 out of 26, and in 2023 it was 22 out of 22. And if we look at the ones that are pending investigation, almost all of them are pending investigation. Only one was interviewed in 2023. Is this because of the lack of access to the detention facilities and have you been able to gain access?
One of the primary, I hate to use the word obstruction, I will say prohibition against completing investigations, both on the detention side as well as the police side. And I say that because we have requirements for training and orientation. And even though that's been modified, the number of hours was modified in the ordinance, whenever a board member leaves, whether it's civilian oversight or detention facilities oversight, that board member has to receive the orientation and training before we've been allowed to access the jail to interview detainees, and also before we can present our final investigative reports to the boards. So that, I know you were speaking to Detention Facilities Oversight Board. That has been a major block in terms of gaining access to the jail to meet with the detainees, as well as being able to complete the investigations.
From what I observed last year, and excuse me, because I'm not on the Public Safety Committee, I have only been watching this kind of from afar, but I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, I actually received a tour of the Justice Center. And as an alderperson, I had zero training. I was not required to take any classes. I was shown through the facility, but they did tell me not to talk to the detainees. But I imagine that training doesn't take a lot of time. And excuse me for saying this, and it's certainly not directed at you, but it's directed at really the previous administration. It felt like moving goalposts. It felt like, and I think you said you didn't want to use the word obstruction, but it felt like obstruction, whether it was or wasn't, but it definitely looked that way. When you cannot interview people, when you have 22 out of 22 cases still open, when per your testimony earlier today, you were unable to close cases because whether it's for the Civilian Oversight Board or the Detention Facilities Oversight Board, we're not able to have that proper oversight. And keep in mind, I'm saying this because I think we should. I think we should have that oversight. But I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions today. I want to make sure that as we move forward, we get a better understanding. And so when we see you all again next year, after we spend a year under state control, perhaps we can figure out how all this kind of ends up settling out. My hope is that we continue to have some level of oversight, but right now, I think we definitely need to see more of a response, more of a collaboration, and a willingness to have some oversight over these bodies that can literally, again, be life or death for people in our city. So thank you again. I appreciate the time, and I conclude my questioning.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. My colleagues did a really great job of answering questions that I had, so I don't have any questions for you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Devotie.
Yes, ma'am. I too thank you for appearing this morning. And I also do not have any questions. So thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alderman Devotie. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. Just a few questions. So in the booklet, it looks like right now you guys are occupied at about 11 individuals within the department. Does that sound about right?
Correct.
And you requested 17, but you were given 12. Sounds about right?
Correct.
Those requests, I see legal investigator number 2. You currently have 4, but you wanted 2 more.
For legal investigator 1.
I see legal investigator 2.
I'm sorry, legal investigator 2.
Yeah, you asked for in both, but for 2 you asked for 2 because you currently have 4, but you are trying to get 6, correct?
Correct.
And then for legal investigator 1, you currently have 1, and we're requesting 4, but we're granted 2.
Correct.
Yes. These legal investigators do a lot of work, I guess, on when we talk about complaints and making sure that those complaints are followed through. Is that kind of the role of the legal investigators?
Yes, I would agree to that. They're dissecting the information and making sure that the pertinent questions are being asked and that they are interviewing the individuals that are directly related to the complaint.
Okay. And then my last question, because they also my colleagues asked some good ones. Going back to the oversight and making sure that the DFOB, well, are all the positions on DFOB filled at the moment?
Not on the board, no.
Okay, and are you guys working with the mayor's office to make sure that those positions are filled, and how many are not filled? Are you working with the mayor's office to get those filled?
Yes, we are.
How many are not filled?
Good question. There are 4 that are not filled.
And how many on expired terms?
Well, for Reverend Gray, who is the chair of the board, he has agreed to continue on this year. That is the only board position that I'm aware of where we had a question in terms of his term, his or her term.
Okay. How has it been working with the new administration? Because I would also kind of echo some of the comments from the aldermen from the 9th of, and when I say the previous administration, I'm talking about Jennifer Clemens Abdullah and the lack of allowing DFOB to get into the, where we not only had to revise the language around COB, but also DFOB. And then myself and Alderwoman Sanier had to work on legislation to give access to not only attorneys, but elected officials to make sure that that oversight is happening. How has that relationship have been working with your office and Mr. Brumman, who I'm really impressed with and hopeful for, to ensure that members can get into our CJC to kind of see what's going on when it comes to the oversight in the jail?
Good question. Commissioner Burris has been very open. He's been available, as well as Tammy Ross, in communications and access. The next step for us in regards to our published reports is to look at the policies and the trainings and assist our boards to look at that information, review the information, and then in terms of their role and providing recommendations. But right now, as a matter of fact, Commissioner Burris provided us the policies for the Justice Center. So as we look at the allegations and the complaints and the reports, then we will be correlating those policies to the allegations to understand more about what is going on.
And the word training was used previously before your time, I would say a lot to hold up members from being able to get into the jail. Have all members, and Ms. Nicole Barton, I know, is a help in that, which her position is up in limbo. Is she not is she not like on the special force side for the department at the moment anymore?
She's been very supportive, and she's available. As a matter of fact, she was the one who recommended that Jamal Rogers would be a good trainer for this last training that's required.
Okay, but I don't think she's in a paid position anymore. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay. How many members have training left completed?
All of the trainings have been completed, except for this last training.
But all the hours, because I think we changed it in the legislation, all hours for them to be able to get access if there's complaints or situations at the jail, is that all complete?
Yes, I believe it was probably around 16 hours. Our staff were trainer not every week, it was scheduled. But we would convene, I believe we convened about 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Okay. That is all the questions that I have. One more. If you, in a perfect world, if you could get, knowing that you asked for 17 but only granted 12 positions, what is a critical position that you would need in your department to make sure that the oversight function can flow well for this department, for the city of St. Louis as a whole?
Client Services Coordinator would be very helpful to us to address the strategic component of the work that we're doing. We really need someone to be in touch with the families as we're working and focus on the institutional context.
Gotcha. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for your amazing staff for being here today and all the great work that you all do. I think it's one of them departments that is definitely overlooked, and when you talk about oversight, it's critical, even though I know we're in a new weird time right now with the state takeover and MAGA crazy Republicans want to kind of silence oversight. But you didn't say it, I said it. And with that, I will see. I see you, Alderwoman Sanye. You may proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify who whose responsibility is it to determine when a member is fully trained and when, who gets access to complaints? Whose responsibility? Whose role is that?
Well, the ball falls in my court, but I look to staff and we look at our records. We have a record that identifies which trainings board members and staff members have completed. Did I answer your question?
I don't want to repeat hearsay, so I think you maybe would be a good person to speak to this. A lot of the DFOB members and COB members kind of suggested that it was the city councilor that was determining what adequate training was and kind of creating the modules and who should have access and when investigations could happen. And I'm asking this because I think to Alderman Browning's question about, is the city councilor, could we just rely on counsel from the city councilor, or is there independent independent counsel that's needed? From what I understand from public safety committee hearings is that the DFOB and COB members, I've heard members from both boards, were saying that it was sometimes a conflict of interest. Well, they felt that it was sometimes a conflict of interest for the city councilor, who's supposed to think about the interest of the jail and is supposed to think about lawsuits and is supposed to kind of think about like what might create liabilities, to be also the person that was determining, who's fully trained, what that looks like, what modules are complained, who's eligible to do visits, and who gets access to the complaints. So I just wanted to know about the city councilor's role in those things.
I've not been in touch with the city councilor's office regarding training. We have been in touch with Nicole Barton related to the training.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, seeing no other questions, thank you for coming today, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, next up, do we have the presentation ready, Madam Clerk? All right, next up we have our amazing NIS department, which we say abbreviations down here at the board, but our neighborhood improvement stabilization or specialist office, as well as the Citizen Service Bureau, who will be presenting their budget. Madam Clerk is pulling up the presentation. For our speaker, there's a little twisty thing at the bottom if you want to lower the mic. And that will push it on down so it can height.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, just state your name, your position, and then you can proceed with your presentation.
Good morning, and thank you all.
And if you could just talk a little bit more to the mic. There you go.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Alderman Aldridge, for inviting the Department of Public Safety Neighborhood Stabilization Division to present our budget for the 2025-26 fiscal year. My name is Karen Clifford. I am the acting director for the Neighborhood Stabilization Division. The Neighborhood Stabilization Division, our mission is to empower residents to sustain a quality environment within their neighborhood through effectively and efficiently registering and routing city services, providing information, assistance, education, and intervention. Several of the ways that we do this is everyone is familiar with the service request and calling 314-622-4800 to get a hold of the Citizen Service Bureau to file a service request. We also have it available where you can submit service requests through the CSB website, and the IVA, which stands for Intelligent Virtual Agents. We provide residents with information, assistance, and intervention. We attend the neighborhood association meetings and neighborhood events to update and educate city residents of the city services and issues. Collaborate with organizations to work on areas that need improvement. Survey the neighborhoods to identify and address physical and behavioral issues. Through complaints and/or personal observation, handle problem properties with the nuisance team from beginning to end. Currently, our structure is we have one executive director position. The neighborhood stabilization team is consisted of 3 NIS supervisors, 18 active NISs, and 3 NIS vacancies. The Citizen Service Bureau is comprised of 1 CSR2, 6 CSR1s, 1 current CSR1 vacancy, and 2 per performance vacancies. The NSD administrative staff, we have 1 administrative assistant 2 position filled and 1 payroll specialist filled. Some of the programs that our Neighborhood Stabilization Division participates in is the citywide National Night Out evening, usually the first Tuesday in October, the neighborhood association meetings, neighborhood cleanups and blitzes. We also produce a newsletter, and we are also looking at this time to possibly have a trivia night where proceeds would benefit various organizations within the city. So to go over our current budget, the general fund, it was requested of $3,616,111. Actually, the proposed amount is less, so it is $3,375,853. The salaries, $1,965,000, and then the proposed budget is $2,029,799. Overtime regular employees was proposed at $209,000. The budget proposed is $169,000. Salaries per performance, $156,544, and then the proposed is $100,000. Do you want me to go ahead and continue to go line by line then with this?
It is totally up to how you, we have. Yeah, I was gonna say we have the line in the
That's
budget.
why I was wondering if that was something that you want, but
Mainly more because I think
where the discrepancies are, or?
no, you know, I think alders, since we have the line item, if it's maybe certain lines that we have questions on, we can ask. But I would say, you know, high level of, you know, what you're asking for and what you didn't receive, or as far as like where maybe the most need is, you know, if you could, in a perfect world, not get everything, but from the budget committee, where we could probably be helpful, either funding or certain positions that you requested and not granted in your department.
So much of the line items that we have are not different than from last year. They're pretty much the same. There are several changes. We do want to add additional employees to the CSB. So the Citizen Service Bureau is a key department within the city. They are going to be the ones that the residents will call when the refuse isn't being picked up, when the snow and the ice is not making their streets passable. When there's something going on, or when is their bulk pickup? They also provide information to the residents. They are the first line of contact. Also, filing those service requests gives us a history and a background when a service request is not completed, how long or where it is, we can update it. And it is just a good tracking method for us in getting city services completed to residents' request. It would be nice because, as you hear many times, everyone referring to Call Citizen Service Bureau, those numbers have increased over 20% this year as far as the numbers of service requests being submitted through the various channels that I had gone through earlier with the phone calls or the IVA or the web. So in order to properly administer those, it would be nice to have another CSR and another CSR2 position in order to help manage the supervision, the monitoring, and the coaching of those CSRs in order to provide the best service and experience that those residents can receive. It is very important when a person calls, when a resident calls very upset to, the trash is overflowing in the alley and, it hasn't been picked up in 2 weeks, and it can lead to, other circumstances of rodents coming around. So that CSR has to be as best trained in handling that situation and listening. That's 90% of that call, is to listen to that resident and offer the best resolution possible. And it can be grating at times, because when it's call after call after call of residents that are upset, and rightfully so, that they are not receiving their city services, that CSR still provides that same, hopefully cheery greeting and listening to what that resident has to say. And my concern is to make sure that those residents receive the best service, attention, and possible information and resolution to their service requests. Also, along with CSB, there has not been a CSR or CSB supervisor. We're talking a group of 10 people that we really need to have someone who will be able to handle the issues that go on in the department, to administer the service ratings, to coordinate the ongoing training, which is weekly, one-on-one sessions with each of the CSRs and the CSR2s. So I would really like to see a more fully staffed CSB department. One other thing, we do have a current position of a secretary. She had been a CSR1. She is more than qualified to move into a CSR2 position, that I would, in other discussions with current staff, that we could eliminate the secretary position and move those responsibilities to the administrative assistant 2 and to the payroll specialist, and move that secretary position to the CSR2. So there isn't a full funding of a new person. We would be transferring that income salary to the CSR2 position. The other thing that there is an increase over is a little bit of an increase in the education. One of the ways that we try very hard is to retain our CSRs and our NISs. It's a very specialized position within the city, but we are also the front line and first face people that the residents see. And to try to retain them, we must invest in them. It's very hard to get the increases of the salaries that would be compensating them equally to peers throughout the country in these similar positions. But the main thing is we need to show that we take an interest in them, that we want to invest in them because we want to retain them in the city and prepare them for management or other positions within the city so we don't lose them, and investing in their education, ongoing training, I think would be a way of us showing our gratitude for the work that they are doing. But those are really, we did reduce a couple of the line items, and office supplies was reduced from 22 to 20. There is one line item that is, let me go to it. It was for $30,000. Actually, it is 561001, and it says the 311 system. That was for $30,000. That is going away in its entirety. We no longer have AT&T. It was taken over when we switched to the 5.9 system. So other than that, a couple of the, and my apologies, is that it was due to my lack of IT experience in doing the budget itself. Some of the line items were duplicated, so we did reduce those. The car allowance was placed in the wrong category, and that was reduced. And it is just at 104,250,000 that we're asking for.
All right, if that is all, Acting Director, we will go in line of order of members and seniority, and I will start with Alderwoman Sanye.
Good morning, Director Clifford.
Good morning, Alderwoman. Yay.
Thank you for being here. I think all of us are extremely grateful for the work that your department does. I don't have any favorites. Everybody's necessary in City Hall, but I think just the role that you all play as far as making sure that residents are getting, honestly, the basics, and that they are getting what their tax dollars are supposed to, pay for. I try to always express and show my great gratitude and appreciation to the neighborhood improvement specialists who I have, because they, we can get an email and sometimes within an hour, okay, Alderwoman, I've got the pictures here, here's what we do. So, I've just found their role to be very essential. They are very present in community. They will go the extra mile to get things resolved. And so I just want to first just make sure that I commend you and commend all of the staff in your department for the hard, diligent work that you all do.
They are an awesome group. Thank you.
No problem. So just diving right into your budget here. So it looks like kind of what you're saying is you almost would like to grow the department, and the budget actually slightly cuts your department. From what I'm looking at, it looks like you had about 39 full-time staff in the FY25 budget, and this year proposes 38. Do you know what position that was that would be eliminated and how that would impact it? And I think you talked a little bit about that, but I'm just curious to talk a little bit more about how you saw the capacity and the staffing of your office.
So I know right now I'm not proposing any cuts. Well, there would be one change, and that would be eliminating the secretary position that we currently have, to move that position salary and position to the CSR2. We currently have one CSR2. I would like to have two CSR2s to do live coaching, monitoring, while actually even the CSRs are on a call at that time, and to try to do that between 8 people. Those CSR2s are not going to be able to capture an issue right then and there if one person is trying to monitor that. So the only thing is we would probably then be eliminating, I don't know of any elimination of positions. So we have let me do my math here, 25. So there's normally, the 3 supervisors are also included as an NIS. So in the NST, that includes the NISs, there are a total of 24 NIS positions. And then the executive director, the CSR2 position would be consisting of 7, 8, 10 positions there. So that would be 34, 35, 36, 37 positions then. I would be, yeah, the 37 would account for everyone that we would have in our department, including the 2 additional, 1 additional CSR2, and then the CSB supervisor.
Okay, and along those lines, do you feel like the salaries, and I know this is hard for every department to answer, because obviously you would always like for your staff to be paid very well and very competitively. But do you feel like the salaries for the neighborhood improvement specialists, that compensation is sufficient?
No. The position requires many different hats, many different times of going out to check, to do our jobs. It's not just an 8 to 5 job. We are out in the evenings, we are out on the weekends. And, you know, we do pay overtime, but if we could compensate, you know, the NISs more, I think that would really work on the retention of these NISs. There's not much chance for our ability for mobility and promotion in our department. You can go from an NIS to a CS, to a supervisor, and then maybe an executive director, or outside of our position. But once we invest the time and they know the job, you don't want to lose that experience. And luckily, over the last year, we've had a lot of retention, but I see very experienced NISs and newer NISs that are growing in these positions and growing that position and learning just extremely impressive skills and contacts and relationships that you don't want to lose. And the only way to do that is to invest in them, to say thank you. I mean, that is the best. The key thing is to invest in your people, and then you're going to keep them. And that's one thing that, you know, is a concern in our department, because we do spend a lot of time. It's a very difficult position, the NISs, to fully grasp. I mean, to try to give a list of what we do is an impossible list to compile. And the CSRs as well, they are underpaid for comparable positions in the corporate or any in their peers throughout the country. And it's a very difficult position when people are upset with things not, you know, their city services not being rendered to them. So, you know, those are, you know, we have to really somehow look, and yes, compensation is a strong way of saying thank you, and we value you, what you bring to our department and to the city, and we want you to stay.
Understood. When you think of this year ahead, and I think especially with the focus, you know, obviously some of the things you mentioned with snowstorms and trash, I think every alder is overly aware of the dissatisfaction and the frustration that residents can have with their citizen services. Is there any specific benchmarks or goals or things that you have in mind for this year as far as making progress on those? Like, I know you mentioned the importance of making sure there's adequate staff within CSB so that there's complaints there. Do you have any specific, just as kind of director of the department, things that you have like goals and metrics in mind of tracking our ability to progress on on our delivery of the citizen services?
So one of the things is we do receive hundreds of thousands of service requests. One of the major issues is the follow-up, making sure that these service requests that are being inputted by either CSRs, by the residents on the web, or by the NISs themselves, to making sure that we follow up with those departments so we don't keep on getting calls about them. That's very important. We do have metrics established, monthly goals that the NISs need to meet. But we would like to emphasize more on that because we are getting feedback from several of the older people to, they're not so much as concerned about getting all these new service requests if the ones that are already there are not being followed up and done and closed. Going back to the ice storm and the 314 storm, one of the and even thank you, Alderman Aldridge, even on this one did recognize the importance of the contact that the NISs have in the neighborhoods and in the communities. We were called upon to do surveying of the of streets that were not clear with the ice, and we reported those in. The 314, we were having a meeting to kind of strategize how to handle that night. And one of the things that came up was to have CSB open from 6 until 11 that night. Or I think it was 7, but we 3 of the CSRs volunteered and to work that night so that if there were issues with the storm, they could call the CSB number and there were live agents there to take their calls and to direct them to information. And then just recently with the cave-ins, to get out the information to the residents about updating them as to where MSD was in resolving and getting the problem filled, the cave-in filled. So I think the use of the NISs is becoming more so to utilize in emergencies because we are able to get out in our neighborhoods to find out what is going on and disseminate information to the residents, which is greatly appreciated. But I do feel that, there are still even more opportunities for us to grow in our positions and interact with the older people in the neighborhood leadership into growing our positions even more.
And your starting salary is at 44, or what is your?
It's at like 44, and then there is a car allowance stipend of $297 per month, so about 47,000.
And again, I'm not saying we're gonna be able to make this happen in the budget, but what do you think would be an ideal starting salary that would help you with retention?
Ideally, I would like to at least put it at a 52,000.
That's actually that seems fairly reasonable. I think you just hinted at some of the things that I wanted to, this is a constituent question. When the snowstorms happened, I actually worked with the neighborhood improvement specialist very closely. And basically we worked to close out requests when they would come in and then bundle them together and send them to the streets director because we were having issues where like the streets department would come and instead of plowing like all of the streets would literally do specifically what was on like one CSB, like you're monitoring like hundreds of requests at that point, and it just became a lot. So we kind of took the proactive measures to kind of go into it, close the tickets out, just expressing to residents, don't freak out if this is closed out. And then we were bundling it, sending it over to the streets department and having the streets department, when they come, do a number of streets at once. But obviously, I think that is a sign of neighborhood improvement specialists working with many different departments. And that was one of the instances where I just saw it. I mean, I see it all the time with boarding up and different things. But just wanted to talk a little bit about how you all's neighborhood improvement specialist collaboration is working with other departments, like the interdependent kind of collaboration, and just anything that we should be mindful of as you guys work to address those issues, whether it's, like I said, Department of Human Services, Office of Violence Prevention, the Building Division. You guys deal with all of the services. So is there anything in your budget that we should be aware of that will impact your ability to be able to work with other departments?
I think one of the things that, I mean, I have not asked for, but we do use our own vehicles. And one of the things that we do is when we go out to survey, we will see major tires and things that, we have asked for other departments at several times we could use one of their trucks and none of them are available. But something like that would be, I have several NISs that do ask for that, if we can get a truck or two or three or four. But when we collaborate with the other departments, we do continuing education with them. We invite the commissioners to our department, and they will meet with us and go over what's going on in their department, update us on their cutting schedules, how they're operating as far as towing derelict vehicles on the streets. When bulk refuse is behind, we get a update every Monday morning from the bulk refuse foreman of what areas they are in for that upcoming week, so that we can let residents know when they call and say, hey, my bulk didn't get picked up yet. Well, they're still behind, but they will be, they're still in your area. So don't worry that it's another new Monday. They're still working there. We do have forestry, for instance. They want to do it on a regular basis and come about every couple of months to go over the cutting schedules, the tree situation, cutting the trees down in the different wards. But one other thing too is.
Do you have I actually have a question that I was going to ask you about the take-home cars. I was just warming my way up there. But so I think that by nature of you all's, there's two systems of taking cars where you check them out and you use them during typical business hours, which I don't think would be all because your typical business hours ends at 5 p.m. I know for a fact that I've left neighborhood meetings at 8 o'clock with the neighborhood improvement specialist. Or do you have the numbers on what it would look like for your department to get, for those neighborhood improvement specialists to get take-home cars? Or is that something maybe you could work on and get to us?
That would definitely be something. I had started some of, as far as every person having a vehicle. And I thank you for bringing that up specifically, because we do use our own vehicles. And yes, we do receive $297 per month for compensation, a car allowance. However, we use our own vehicles, so we're covering our own car insurance. Damage, when we go through many tires every week, every month. Getting them replaced because they're damaged within the alleys. Hopefully at some point we don't have to worry about that. But when we're having to, pay that out of our pocket, I myself incurred $8,400 of damage to my vehicle when an illegal dumper put their car in reverse and rammed the front end of my vehicle. And then the trickle effect, my car insurance has gone up. So that's something I'm going to be paying for a few years over the actual damage done to the car. It is something that would be very much welcomed when we go into a neighborhood. It will be clearly identified on the vehicle that we are with the city. And I think that just shows our presence more, because a lot of times we do hear sometimes, I don't see my NIS sometimes, which is odd. We want to be visible. And I think that would be another way of keeping the NISs in their positions, because of the ability to have a city vehicle provided to them rather than using their own personal vehicles.
Okay, I know Mr. Coleman is in the room with us, and he's very helpful. So I would just like to, and not in a rush, maybe by the end of this week, but definitely by the end of next week, I would love some concrete numbers on what are the specific funding that would look like for all of the, full-time neighborhood improvement specialists who have to sustain all of the wear and tear on their vehicles. What would the financial number be for them to get, for your department to get take-home vehicles for those workers? And if I could get them by next week, Friday, that would be great, but this Friday would be even better.
We will have them to you if you're willing to consider, we will have them to you on Friday morning at the latest. Thank you.
And my very last question is just, as far as training and development, what sort of training and development opportunities are available for neighborhood improvement specialists?
Well, one of the big things is the leadership And there's the Neighborhood Leadership Program that UMSL offers, which is which is like a half a year program. But also one other thing too, that Focus St. Louis, I went through that program. They have a leadership and program or a workshop this Thursday that several of us are attending. I paid for it myself, so because I see the value of that, and then
And when you
also,
say yourself, you're not talking about your budget, you're talking about your own pockets?
yes,
So you don't have a professional training development budget in your?
we do. I wasn't sure, so we are looking into that. But I want we are doing a team building workshop, an all-day program for our whole department. The NISs work very independently, even though we are a group working for the city. And it's all, we do see sometimes that absence in the office, that we don't have as much ability to see each other and build that team even more than what we are. We share a lot of ideas, we share information, but to bring us all together, we do have that planned. It was supposed to be this Wednesday, but we're postponing it until hopefully the new executive director will be brought on and they will be able to participate, but it is budgeted for this year. We're going to do very intense training the first part of the day, and then the second day, kind of a fun task about learning about the city. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Alderwoman Sonier.
Alderman Browning?
Ms. Clifford, it's so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Alderman Brown.
I think you know how much I value CSB and everything that the neighborhood improvement specialists do. It's honestly the front line of defense in our city. And you know, when you talk about the number of reports that are going up, I imagine that does not mean that our city has more problems, but just that our city has more problems being reported, which is a good thing because, as I often tell our constituents, we cannot fix a problem if we don't know about it. So I appreciate our residents stepping up and reporting more things, but that does mean more strain on your end, and we want to make sure that you have the tools necessary to handle that increase. I think my colleague asked a lot of the questions that I had. What I heard you say is that you would be okay with moving money from the secretary one position over so that you could hire an additional customer service representative. Is that correct?
CSR2 position.
CSR2.
They are more of a supervisory management, quasi-management, but they also, at times, if we would be short-staffed due to illness or vacations and lunchtimes, they can step in also and take calls too. So they would be additional forces for us. And also, thank you for your one comment. No, it's not that the city is having more issues, but the emphasis for when we go to meetings or when there's town halls, we are hearing, you know, the emphasis of calling the 314-622-4800 and utilizing the CSB to get those service requests in so that we can, you know, keep track of what's being filed and where they are. You know, it's our way of keeping that intact. Mm-hmm.
Well, great. I think that's a very reasonable request, and since it's moving within your own budget, I don't think that should be difficult to accomplish, and I'd be happy to support an amendment like that to help you out. One of my first jobs in St. Louis was as a customer service representative, and so I know exactly what goes into that work and how difficult it is to answer phone call after phone call every day, sometimes with people being very rude, but understanding their frustration because at the end of the day, they're concerned about some issue in the city that can't get fixed unless it gets reported and then routed to the appropriate department. So it cannot be overstated just how important that is. And then on the other side, neighborhood improvement specialists are out there actively seeking out problems or actively looking into reported problems. And anyone who has an NIS that they work closely with knows their value. As Alderwoman Sonia was saying, this can be used to cover almost any issue in the city, and I very much consider my NIS team to be kind of my right-hand people when it comes to solving issues in the city.
Thank you.
I heard you say that you're using your own personal vehicles. I knew that before, but I think it's important to highlight today because I think alders also use their own personal vehicles to drive around and look at stuff, and I often think about the wear and tear driving down some of these alleys, driving down some of these streets. To me, it emphasizes the importance until we can get you in a place where you do have city vehicles to drive around. And I'm not sure when that would be, but I acknowledge it as a need, and I think we should work towards that. But until we do it, it emphasizes the importance of taking care of our infrastructure, because making sure that these streets that I know people think, well, maybe I don't have occasion to go drive up into different parts of the city, but who do? Our city workers are using their own personal vehicles. So I absolutely hear that, because that can run up a bill for you all, and if it comes directly out of your pay to maintain your vehicle, that can be a deterrent from working for the city.
Yes, it is.
So looking at your budget, I think you kind of answered this question already, but I'm sorry, I lost my place here. 1 second. So there's a few different positions that were unfunded in your budget, but I think I've heard you say that the customer service representative 2 position is probably the most important of those that you'd like to get filled.
Either that or this, yes, the CSR2 would be the most important at this time.
Okay. And the only other question I have for you is, in the annual operating plan, your stated goal for property declared a public nuisance dropped from the estimate in FY25, which was 700. It dropped down to 600 for FY26, and I was just curious why that drop.
The properties that were declared nuisances are placed under the problem properties ordinance. A lot of that, some of it is contributable to prior to a year or so ago. We were able to utilize going into possible vacant properties, declaring them as nuisances, and the ordinance and also the federal government has, due to fundings that the problem properties department receives, has been very strict on outlining what determines or what we can file as a problem property. We also do not want to penalize someone who is possibly a tenant and they are being stalked, harassed by a former partner, spouse, and causing calls for service to come into a home or are being made on a property. Those are things that we can direct to getting DVIP or other resources to them, and not be declared as a problem property under the nuisance ordinance, because then we're penalizing that person twice. We are punishing them for something they don't have control over. They could possibly be evicted, and it's not under their control at times. They will get a restraining order and do everything possible, but we don't want to put them out on the street. They're already having enough to deal with. So the guidelines of what constitutes and what we can put into as a problem property, those have been narrowed down much more stringently as far as the parameters. So that's where that number is coming down at.
Okay, so, reading the report, it might seem like you're handling, or at least reporting fewer nuisance properties or problem properties. But what it sounds like you're saying to me is that this is actually a much more empathetic approach, and that the guidelines and the definition has been made a little more strict, but also that we're taking an approach where we're trying to make sure we're not creating a victim out of somebody who's already a victim.
That is correct.
That's really nice to hear, and I can imagine lots of situations like you described where if someone comes and is causing a disturbance at a residence that maybe isn't theirs, and yet it's the person who lives there who it would be reported on. I am curious in that kind of situation, how is that resolved then? If we have a person who is routinely causing a disturbance at a property, but they don't live at that property, so you cannot tie the problem property or the nuisance to that address, what is typically done in that kind of situation?
We will, usually if it's a rental, we will meet with the owner of the rentals. A lot of times they're not aware of the situation. Other times they are. And that's how we find out. We get more into the in-depth of what the situation is. And we will, we have resources to provide to the owner to give to their tenant. We educate the owner. One of the other things that sometimes we will put a property like a business, a gas station, into the problem properties process, because it's not to penalize them, but the city can also help them. If we have them listed, because we've gotten a lot of calls for service in that area, but a lot of the problems are people coming to that gas station because of surrounding businesses, or there's a bus stop on the side that attracts or will bring people there, and they'll loiter. We will make suggestions to them as to how to handle that. But also with having them in problem properties, it allows for the problem property officers to issue summons against the problem, the people who are actually causing the problem. And it also helps the employees, to give them, yes, you call 911, you're not going to be, you're not abusing the system. It gives them more education of what they need to do to detract and deter that type of actions, nuisance activity that is giving their business a bad name and possibly losing business because people don't want to go there to get gas because of issues that have happened there. So I hope that answers.
That does. What I'm hearing is that there's mitigation involved in addition to, penalties. If it's a responsible party, then there'll be penalties, a way of encouraging them to fix the issue. But if it's not, if it's a little more complicated problem, there could be some mitigation or even offering of resources to fix that problem. And what I also heard in that answer, and I want to emphasize, is that 911 is called for all sorts of reasons. It's very much a catch-all for a lot of different problems in the city, and people often feel a little bit weird calling 911 on a house because they feel like maybe that's not an emergency, but that is the way. Does the non-emergency number also feed into that?
You can, yes, it'll show up also as calls.
Okay.
But once a property has been declared a problem property, there's a list that the police, and a lot of times we will also advise residents if they need to call to let them know that that address that they're giving is a problem property, so that it will be recorded. The other thing, I will go ahead and let you finish because I kind of lost track of my thought.
I think what I was just kind of building to was the idea that, again, things need to be reported if we're going to solve them. And so the way we deal with problem properties is either calling 911 or the non-emergency number if it's not an urgent thing. And again, I think for people out there that might be confused as to when to call which, I usually reserve 911 if someone's person is in danger, if there's a imminent harm or something that could be a true emergency. Otherwise, if it's a property issue, to call the non-emergency number. But that either of those is a crucial part of the process of getting things reported and getting a record. Even if you feel like you've called on this property 2 or 3 times already, keep calling, because it creates that record that then allows the city to take these steps to deal with these properties.
That is correct. And the we want to eliminate the nuisance issue that's going on at these properties. Ultimately, if it would go to an administrative hearing, it could be shut down for 12 months. No neighborhood wants a vacant property boarded up in their neighborhood. It detracts from the value and the safety of the neighborhood. When people see a boarded up house, it can lead to more activity, that we have to then address with squatters and, it just trying to resolve that issue is the first and foremost thing. And we have various means to get to that end.
Well, thank you so much. I think that that your department is one of the ones that really makes the city a better place for everybody, that it is a crucial step in making sure that we can take care of issues big and small. And I know how hard all of you work, and I want to make sure that we get you exactly what you need. So if there's anything ever outside of this budget process that you all could use help with, I do encourage you to reach out to us, because I think we all recognize your value and importance.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. Thank you.
Alderman Velasquez? Alderman Devoti?
I'm not showing either one of them on.
All right. Well, we'll keep it moving. Also, I want to thank you, Acting Director, for coming today and just talking about the ins and out of NIS. And just I think most people know when they have issues with infrastructure and different things in the city, sometimes even before they call the alder, they put it in CSB, which I think you guys are very, all departments are important, like Alderwoman Tanya said, but kind of get not recognized enough for the great work that you all do to make sure that some of these issues that fall through the crack are actually being reported and answered. I do have a few questions. One concern that I have with sometimes with things being reported, if you could talk about it, residents have told me when they have reported certain cases and they went to CSB, they'll call back, and those cases have been closed out, and would realize that, either once the alderperson or once the citizen go back out there, that actually that case was never fixed. They put it in again, and then it's closed out again. Can you talk about why that breakdown happens of cases being closed out and not actually being addressed by the right department and fixed?
So that's actually part of the things that our new director, Dace, is also addressing in City Hall, too. The problem is a lack of consistency as to how city departments define closed. Does it mean to some it's the actual work was done? That rollout cart, that dumpster got replaced. It had damaged, or that one, those are one way. The bulk might sit out there because it might be closed out, that it was put out at the wrong time, that it'll be addressed at the next pickup time, scheduled pickup dates. Some are closed, not due to employee shortage. So how we determine that, that's why it's so important, is that when a service request is filed, if you saw the whole screen, there's a section where comments are included. And we can put comments in when we have followed up with a city department or reopen. When we hear from a resident stating that that service request is closed and it said it was that pothole was filled, or the sidewalk was fixed, those are, and they aren't, then we can reopen, CSB or the NIS can reopen that same service request rather than filing a brand new one and starting the whole process over. We show the whole history of what's been going on. And that's one of the big issues, and I don't want to say issues, but problems with trying to better serve the citizens with accurate information and the proper servicing of a service request, not to close it. They will, in the building division, when they send out an inspector to do the initial inspection of an exterior maintenance issue, they will, if there are issues found, they will issue a violation letter and then also schedule around a 60-day follow-up inspection, but they will close out that service request because that step has been done. But in order for us to find out what happened since then, we will need to go to a different database, the St. Louis permits, so we can give better information as to what is going on, if it was resolved because all the work was done. So the big thing is to get a consistent definition and following of what and when to close a service request.
And I think that I'm glad that the new public safety director is looking into that because I know that is a concern, and it is not to point at you all, but somebody may put something in for a pothole, and then that goes to the certain department, not necessarily CSB. Well, it goes in CSB, but not to your department, and those other departments are closing them out, and those requests aren't being filled. And then residents are, upset that they look online and they see that the request is closed, and to then figure out that it's actually not being filled. So hopefully the public safety director, as he's listening, and we're week 2 of public safety, can figure out some type of way to make sure, even if one department, I guess, complete a task, but the overall task is not complete, what would that look like so that, because once it's closed out, it kind of falls through the cracks as if it was done, and there's still more work that need to be done on that request. So glad to hear that.
There was, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
So we just actually met last Wednesday. There were representatives from City Hall that are looking into this. Julian Nix is one of them. And he kind of spearheaded us getting this meeting together. Director Dace and several of his members and several of us from the NSD, we sat and were going over the whole service request process. And we did start addressing about how service requests were being closed and how they do it in different departments.
Gotcha.
So that was done. It was also addressed in LUSTAT, which is possibly now being continued. So that is a concern because I know you as an alder person also hear it from the residents too. And to be fair to the residents, their service requests are not, we're not wanting them closed out until they're done.
Well, that's positive news, and I will give flowers to Mr. Julian Nix in the mayor's office, who's the acting deputy of operations. I know he's only been here a short time, but is really getting on top of some of these antiquated systems in the city of St. Louis, and excited to continue to work with him, and glad to know that that is being addressed because there is some breakdown somewhere where these requests are being put in by residents and then figuring out that they're being not completed and closed out. Going back to your TO or your FTE for people watching FTE, full-time employees chart. There was a comment made earlier that I just want to clarify. Last year, you asked for 39 employees, but you was only able to fill 36 of those. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about, yes, yes.
And this year, you're asking for 41 employees, but were granted 38. So a little closer to the pathway of trying to get to a position where you guys fill all those employees. Sounds about right.
Yes, sir.
And you brought up, and the alderman had also mentioned it from the 9th. So you're looking to Secretary 1, which is in a general fund. What you're saying is you're looking to potentially eliminate that role and move it to the customer service rep role.
A CSR2 position, yes, sir.
CSR2, so CSR2, not CSR1. Okay. CSR2, which you currently only have 1 position, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you asked for 2, and you still was granted 1, so you're trying to maybe get creative where you can move your secretary role to the CSR1 role. And it looks like from the amount budgeted, the CSR2 roughly makes about $500 something more, so would also need to figure out how to get that, find $500 to make the salaries the same.
I would like to see that CSR2 position salary started a little bit higher because the person would be handling much more of a coaching management position than a project and task position that the secretary is doing at this time.
Got it.
I
Okay.
think that we could, I mean, there are funds that we could move some of those from the, with that CSR2 position, we could find some extra funds in the per performance position. We have 2 openings for there.
Okay, I see in the per performances, looks like you have about proposed request, about 100,000, it looks like in per performance.
Yes. And I think that with one of the duties that the CSR2 position can do that would help eliminate the need to call in a per performance person at times is that they can also get on the phone too when we have a shortage.
Okay. Well, always a little easier when you can move money around within the department instead of trying to find new money, I guess. Just I'm sure if folks work on that, maybe a conversation to have with Paul. How does that work with the grade code? Because I see those grade codes are a little different from each other. But that answer all of my questions. I see the Alderwoman from the 6th is coming in. Okay, no questions. Seeing no more questions from members on the committee, thank you so much, Director, and thank you for your team. I know you have some folks here just for the record if you want to acknowledge it as well.
I want to recognize our NIS Supervisor Christian Saller, and also I want to thank Anthony Mancilis he is our payroll specialist and also quasi budget person here too. And also she's not here, but she is watching, I know, is Yolanda Bowden. She's our administrative assistant too. She and Anthony were the brainchilds behind all of this. I just got to reiterate, but I thank them for their support and their assistance. And thank you for your kind words for our department. It means so much to them and to me because they are an awesome group. It is such a unique position to have. I look forward to seeing what happens to them down, where we grow and can expand our responsibilities for the citizens and also to make the city the best possible city ever. And I know to be a part of that is to be a part of something great. So thank you.
Thank you for being here today, Director, and thank you to all the amazing staff that continues to make CSB and NIS such a critical department within the city of St. Louis.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will take a motion to recess until 1 p.m. where we will continue with the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry.
So moved.
It was moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderwoman of the 7th Ward that we go to recess to 1 p.m. We are in recess. The Budget and Public Employees Committee will resume from our 1 p.m. recess as we dive back into item number 6, committee discussion. We are kicking off with Department of Park, Recreations, and Forestry Division. Today, we have our director and all our amazing commissioners who keep the city going when it comes to park, recreations, and forestry. With that, I will have the director come on up and just state his name for the record, and if you want to, he can introduce the amazing staff that you have with you, which I know some of them may come up and talk about their budget. Thank you for being here, Director, and please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Alderman.
You just got to turn it on. Also, there's a little, it's on the front. There you go. Yep. And press the button. There we go.
Thank you.
Awesome.
First part of the presentation, right?
No problem.
Actually, I might be able to do this better.
Little twisty button on the side too if you want to.
There we go. How's the sound there?
Sounds good. Push it down just a little bit more. And then if you want to, there's a little twist thing if you want to lift it up to your height. But totally up to you, Director.
How is that? Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Great. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, committee. Really appreciate your time and attention and being here with us today. A special thanks also to the Budget Division for working with us since essentially January on this budget. What I'm going to do first is introduce our team. You're right, that is better. So if you could just raise your hand when I say your name, and of course they'll introduce themselves again, so to speak, here shortly. Kim Hagley, Parks. Joaquina Callion, Recreation. Alan Jankowski, Forestry. Mary Lou Green, Brightside. And Denise Blanchard, Parks. Thank you.
Thank you to all the commissioners for being here.
We appreciate it. So with this budget, let's say we are pleased with this budget, but we do have some concerns, and that's why I feel this meeting is very important to us every year. Our parks, overall, Parks, Recreation, Forestry, and as you know, Brightside and Soulard Market fall under our management overview and umbrella, if you will. What's that?
That's just if you want to stand, but.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Our general budget, as you see, is about $26 million, slightly up from the current fiscal year we're in. And if you add all the taxes and other things that get involved with our department, you're at about $47 million. Let me just start off with Parks. I'll just go through a general overview, and then the commissioners and myself will be available for questions. Parks, we have 110 city parks, approximately 3,200 park acres to manage. Grass maintenance, park amenities such as playgrounds, comfort stations, and other facilities all fall within our maintenance and management overview. With our budget here, Kim Hagley has sent a few emails that I think all of you have been on. We really appreciate the quick follow-up. Late in the budget process, she noticed that 2 permanent utility workers were missing, unbeknownst to her, and a couple emails back and forth, and it appears, at least at the moment, the notion is to restore those with no increase in the budget because roughly $78,000 will be taken from another account to make that whole. We were a little disappointed last year, and again this year, we asked for just in excess of $300,000 to add Carondelet Park as another regional park to do contractual services due to staffing challenges. That was not included in the budget again this year. Moving on to recreation, we have 7 city-managed recreation centers, 7 pools. 4 of those are indoor, 3 are outdoor, all city-managed. Of course, we have staffing challenges there trying to get lifeguards, and our goal is to open these outdoor pools Memorial Day weekend. Joaquina did lose a rec leader in her budget. Overall, her budget is pretty much static, and she can go into some of those details and answer any questions. Forestry, we manage all our city street trees and park trees, citywide plantings, trims, removals, and stump grinds. Alan and his team are also responsible for all the vacant property maintenance, lots, buildings, and what we call, it's probably a misnomer, but we call them easements. But essentially, as you know, if you're driving on 70 West and you look over and you see Bircher, on the outside, the grass is cut by MoDOT. On the inside, that's forestry. So that's what we call dislocated parcels or unique locations. Alan's budget, current budget, he is losing 3 tree trimmers. It's no secret. We have an extremely difficult time recruiting and hiring tree trimmers due to the pay and other circumstances. It's a very dangerous job. So thus, we have to fill that void with contractors, just like Kim and Alan do with grass cutting contracts. One thing to note, the prior administration asked us to definitely include the staffing for forestry to be a little more self-sufficient of picking up after ourselves like we did for decades until 2019 when our debris removal crew was transferred to streets. We did not want that operational decision to happen, but obviously it did. So Alan had asked for 6 heavy equipment operators, 4 construction equipment operators, and 5 utility workers to run our own debris program. It's a total of 15 individuals. None of those are included in this budget, but what is here now and coming further are 2 front loaders, 2 dump trucks, 4 roll-off trucks, and 2 skid steers. So it's obvious that we're going to have the equipment, but we're not going to have the staff to operate that equipment. Sure would be nice at some point in the future to get those trained staff to run this equipment. Otherwise, we don't want it sitting idle. I'll wrap up here. Soulard Market, as we know, it's an iconic destination in Soulard in our neighborhood. Bob Ray coined a term that I thought was very applicable. He calls Soulard a small business incubator, which he's right. It's an opportunity for folks that don't have the funds to do the startup costs to run a business, and they can get their start at Soulard. Great place for a variety of affordable items. And finally, Brightside. Beautification and graffiti eradication are 2 of the things you should think of with Brightside. Fostering relationships in all our city neighborhoods. And our goal is to collaborate with citizens, strong community leaders, and to create community leaders in these neighborhoods for quality of life issues that we all deserve and demand, especially, obviously, our citizens. So that is my summary. I'll put the mic up, and I am here, and the entire staff is here.
Thank you, Commissioner. And for committee members, we're going to do it a little differently because there are 5 different interests that people may have questions. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go in from different departments, from forestry to parks to Brightside and then the others, and allow folks maybe to ask questions. Never will limit questions, but if we can maybe get the top 4 out and then go through other commissioners, and then maybe at the end, if there are just some missing questions that folks may have, so that we don't have commissioners coming back up and down at the same time. But I will start with anybody if they have any direct maybe questions for the director of the different departments. And with that, I will just start mainly on the departments. Again, we do have parks if you want to get into the details of forestry or Brightside and these others. We have folks that can come up with that. But if you have questions for the director, I would just go down really quickly in list of seniority. Alderwoman Sanye.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you.
You as well.
I always start by just showing my gratitude and giving my thank yous. I feel like public service work is very underappreciated, and you probably hear complaints more than you hear praises. So even though I'm going to get into specific questions about your budget, I think it's always important just to thank you and your staff for coming before us, making the time to be here, working on your budget, and making sure that this you all's department is especially important to constituents of my ward. They care a lot about their greenery, their sustainability. So thank you so much for the work that you do there.
Thank you.
So it does look like overall your budget is receiving an increase from the fiscal year 25 from about $42,947,000 to this year proposed $45 million. For the fiscal year 2026. And I found that interesting because even though your budget is getting an increase, the total full-time equivalent positions decreased from 303 to 297. So I just wanted to touch base, and I think you might have alluded to like some contractual things and outsourcing some things due to the difficulty of kind of retaining and attracting some of those employees. But if you could speak to some of the ways that this, the budget will impact your staffing reductions. Just explain a bit more about those specific decreases and the overall increase in your budget.
Sure. Well, where we can't get staffing, we do go to professional services. Kim has 4 parks that are cut by a private contractor. Alan has 2 active contractors working on vacant buildings and vacant lots and the easements I mentioned. So those folks do cost money. Where he has 2 other contracts that are ready to go that are not funded, and 2 that are just sitting there that went through the process that could use funding as well. So those are the things we've tried to do. Going directly to Alan, I believe he asked for, let me just check, kind of answers your question. He asked for essentially, if you're including overtime, seasonal, professional services, and fleet, he asked for $5.5 million, and we're receiving 2.9. So when you put that in perspective, Alan right now can do 3 vacant buildings rotations in 24 weeks, roughly, April through September, and he can do 5 on lots. I don't think anybody in the room wants to cut their property 3 times a year. So that's a real problem there. To answer your question, I know a lot of the increases that come up annually in our budget will be for for benefits. Those go up, and the various fringe benefits. So if that helps answer your question, that's typically where we see any type of bump increase in the overall budget. But contractual is, we have no choice.
Thank you. This is like forestry, but it might be for you because it's about the overall budget. Yep. So it's kind of the same thing. Their budgeting, saw an increase overall from $10,646,949 in fiscal year 25 to this year. It looks like we'll be doing $10,951,786. Which is good to see the increase, just about a $300,000 increase. And I was just wondering, and if this is better for someone else, we can wait, if you could speak to just some of the operational needs that increase will help to meet.
Sure. Yes. I'm trying to, Alan, I would defer to Alan on the specific 300,000 on the increase.
Increase in funding.
Mr. Allen, if you can just state your name and your department. You're fine.
Yeah. My name's Alan Jankowski, Commissioner of Forestry. And then you were looking at some increases in our budget. We're kind of, as you can look, I guess that line item, I'm on page 134. If you could look at the line item budget, like salaries, 20 fiscal year 2025, looks like we went up $200,000 there. Mm-hmm. We increased $100,000 for overtime.
Okay.
And then the rest, it looks like some of our retirement system goes up. Those fringe benefits really kind of increase. But besides that, we haven't seen a really jump in anything else.
Okay. And Chairman, you want us to hold on specific questions?
Yeah, it looks like since you already opened up Pandora's box for forestry, if the director want to take, and we'll just start with forestry, Mr. Allen want to stay up, and we'll just go from forestry, and then we'll go from each one after that. And if maybe some pending questions that the director may want to add on to, he could do that. But let's just go ahead and start with forestry.
Okay, so for neighborhood foresters, which is a division that has been established as like a tree, you guys established a tree trimming academy to train new staff, which I think is excellent because residents in the 7 definitely care about how their trees are cut or not cut, and sometimes will be proactive and do it themselves. But I just was curious about kind of the success rate of this program, and is there any correlation between this tree trimming program and your retention of staff and/or your delivery of quality of services, just how you've seen it working since you put it into place? I would imagine it was put into place to help make sure that it's done right when they're sent out into the field, but would love to get just like an update of how that's working for you in real-time implementation.
Okay, so the neighborhood foresters.
Or volunteers, sorry.
They're volunteers,
Right.
yeah. So it's a group that may be in different parts of the city, and there's a nonprofit that kind of runs that called Neighborhood Foresters. And so they'll get individuals that are interested in trimming our street trees, and it's mainly just clearance pruning, like just down the sidewalk and maybe in the street, anything they can reach by their hands. So,
and is this self-initiated? Like I have a couple of 7th warders who definitely participate and do it. Is it just they initiate on their own and kind of get going themselves?
yeah, we'll work with the neighborhood group, and then an arborist, such myself or one of our arborists, will give them a little training. Hey, we're looking at the branch ridge, branch collar, kind of give them some science behind what we're pruning, why we're pruning, how much we can prune off of a tree. And then each of the neighborhood foresters that we give them a little card will go through a little training with us.
Is the program relying all on federal, if it's no federal funds or anything like that?
No funds from us. It's like grant money from the Missouri Department of Conservation or any kind of grant money that nonprofit gets. And they may buy some hand pruners and some saws for them to work, but no funding besides us training goes from city budget.
And do you have any specific goals to expand the program to other neighborhoods, or any ideas of how you would, like, I represent a ward that's very active in East, of course, you know, they're gonna plug in, they're gonna do it proactively, but I'm just curious about how other areas of the city might have been informed or taken aware of also being able to get that initiative.
Yeah, we probably do a better job in informing the rest of the city. We've been kind of relying on that nonprofit to kind of get that word out. I know it's kind of it started in the Benton Park kind of neighborhood, and then Clifton has some folks, and then they'll branch out and do some other areas throughout the city, but we'd love to grow the program.
Yeah, I have been Park West, so I think that is, them and Tower Grove East have definitely taken advantage.
Yeah, Tower Grove, yep.
For capital funding for forestry, the forestry division will receive a little bit over $1 million in capital funds to remove hazardous trees and continue to remove like the ash trees. Is there a new pool of funds that we can expect to continue to receive? And just a little bit about the projected impact on urban forest health with you all, with a little bit of $1 million funds in capital funds that are being given to the removal of the hazardous.
Yeah, so there's capital money for removal of ash trees, like you mentioned, and that's usually $500,000 to remove each year. And then there's capital money to remove trees, hazard trees, so kind of separate from the ash program. And then we also did receive an $8 million grant from the federal government a couple of years ago. And those individuals or those contracts can only cut trees in the CJUST areas. It's called Climate Economic Justice Screening Tool, which the federal government set up. So a lot of our lower income neighborhoods where all that money is spent, and it's trimming trees, removing trees, and then we're going to remove 1,600 trees, and then we'll also plant 3,200 trees, 2 to 1 in those areas.
Okay, that actually just completes My question is specifically for forestry. I just wanted to make sure that I did acknowledge that I think the neighborhood forestry program was started in Benton Park West neighborhood, and just make sure that I give a kudos to those residents on the record for having that initiative to get that started, and just want to make sure that I served as their voice to say like they're definitely interested in building out and being able to bring that to other parts of the city. I know you said Benton Park, I think you just meant Benton Park West, but they are very excited about it. We've seen great results on it. It's been a great compliment to the work that the forestry department does, and I think they're definitely exploring opportunities to build that out further to other parts of the city.
Would love to grow it. Yes, thank you.
Alderman Browning. No rush. Got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, sorry, I had an itch in my throat. Commissioner, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Similar to Alderman Sanya, I'd like to just start out by saying how grateful I am for not just you, but the entire department. Every time I reach out to you all, you're quick to get back to me, very helpful in resolving the issue. And I think that our parks and our trees and our recreation centers and our just everything that goes into this department, it all is about providing for our residents, and St. Louis really shines when we hit these areas. We not only have the best urban park in the country, but we have so many other wonderful assets that people can use, and just I always get compliments from people about their experiences in our parks, so I just want to pass that on.
Thank you.
The forestry division, I just have a couple questions. So I saw in your budget, I think it's page 140, line item detail, you had requested positions of 6 utility workers, construction, 4 construction equipment operator, 1s, a program coordinator, I think 6 heavy equipment operators, a tree trimmer. So a lot of positions. If we're trying to kind of scrounge up some money for you, what would you say is the highest priority among those positions?
I believe the one that Greg mentioned, the 3 tree trimmers, we'd love to hold on to those. And then the 6 heavy equipment operator ones, the 4 construction equipment operator ones, and the 5 utility workers. So Greg kind of mentioned we're getting CDA funding. They already purchased this equipment that's coming to forestry to help us. When we cut vacant building, vacant lots, we take all that debris and we put it in the alley and we put it in the front curb. And then the street department comes and picks it up. We'd love to be able to just clean it up right then and there and have our front loaders loaded on to roll-off containers and then run that stuff to the
When you say it streets comes and picks it up, is that refuse that's coming and picking it up, or is it it's just streets?
Street department debris team.
Okay, interesting.
It's under Kent Flake's team, I believe.
Yeah, sometimes we don't realize how these departments cross over, so it's
Yeah, sorry. They have a debris team that goes through alleys and they're cleaning up debris, our illegal dumping on a lot of our vacant lots out there. But and then they have to come behind us and clean up all the debris that, all the brush and all the small trees that we cut down when we're cutting these lots. We're kind of putting that debris in the street and waiting for the street department to come pick it up. It'd be nice residents see forestry creating that mess, and then we get a lot of calls like forestry's only doing half the job.
understandable. Yeah, dumping is certainly a big problem in the city. We noticed, and I'm sure it just adds to your issues when you're trying to maintain vacant lots.
Yeah, if I could comment on that too.
Please do.
Like, so if there's a refrigerator laying in that lot, if there's somebody dumped a bunch of drywall, when we come up to that lot, we could clean it up while we're there and then take some of that load off of street department. And so the lots that we're maintaining, we can actually clean up.
So with those positions, you're able to do a little more, and it might affect an area where people might not consider that forestry, but it's very helpful. And I know that is something I hear a lot from constituents about illegal dumping. It's a problem throughout the city, but especially in North City, if I go up there and drive around. So I want to make sure that, people understand that it's more than just one department that's helping with that. That's good to hear. I saw in the budget as well, in the line item detail, that you had requested about 2.6 million for per performance employees, but we're only given about 600,000. I'm curious what you could do with more funds for per performance employees.
Yeah, so all that per performance employees, that's related to vacant buildings cutting, so we could raise our rotation of vacant building, vacant lots. And kind of Greg kind of mentioned, if you took overtime, per performance salaries, fleet rental, leasing, and then professional services, right now we're given 2.9 million, and I asked for almost 5.6. We were just trying to do 5 vacant building cuts and then 10 vacant lot cuts. We're just trying to raise that cutting rotations, as we get a lot of complaints. You could imagine 2 weeks after we leave, that grass is already tall, and people that live next to that are pretty upset. And we cut, vacant buildings 3 times a year, and that's what, a month and a half, 2 months. So
yeah.
Not very often.
Even in mowing my own grass at home, I know that if I wait longer, it's more difficult to cut. Yeah. So it then takes longer to cut, and that then diminishes your ability to go and do more. So I can see how that would be a problem that would snowball a little bit and just keep getting bigger and bigger. So we just certainly want to help you and make sure that you can get that done. Flipping over to the revenue side of things, the revenue went down for weed cutting between 2024 and 2025. Do you know what might have caused that?
I think that's in the, I can't answer that 100%. I think that's in kind of.
Great question.
I think,
disjointed here back and forth, but, and I may wrap with one comment at the end. I would say we've looked at those revenue numbers, Alderman. What we have been told, and it's not, in my opinion, a management excuse, we've been told for decades that some of the most difficult things to collect for are our grass maintenance bills. Folks, they're not considered a lien with the comptroller's office where it's certified as a lien. So we rely on a collection agency to collect anything in arrears after 90 days. And we've just heard for years it's extremely difficult to collect for those. The numbers are down. I think we pay them 18% commission on what they collect. And we have to cut, we have to bill. We'll never change that unless we're told otherwise. But it's, bless you, it's extremely difficult to collect. So I'm not surprised the numbers have gone down. They don't pay the bills because there's no threat until they sell their home or want to buy a boat. And then the title company calls us and we say, here's what they owe. Buyer or seller has to pay it.
And I'm playing a little bit here because I think that's an issue that we're going to try to solve for you with the bill that we're working on with you for this year. And that's something that I want to highlight as a problem so that people understand what we're trying to fix there. So I do appreciate that answer because it's very helpful to explaining exactly what's happening there. Vacant properties are a menace across the city, and the city has been recently, including bills we passed last year for the building division, and again, ones that we're looking to pass this year, we're trying to give the departments extra tools to because we know it just creates more work for y'all, but it also is a big impact on our residents who have to live next to these properties. Big or small, if you live next to a single lot that has overgrown weeds or trees that are, dead or dropping branches. I saw a car in my neighborhood the other day that had been hit by a falling branch, and it literally had a branch stuck in the hood. and so that's the kind of thing that we need to maintain. This is kind of a silly question, but how many trees would you estimate we have in the city that the city maintains?
Roughly about 88,000 street trees, and then probably another 80-some thousand park trees. We're still, not all of our parks are inventory, just.
Yeah, so an extraordinary responsibility, but we appreciate the job you've done and continue to do, and we look forward to how we can help. That's all the questions I have for you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderman Velazquez.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Jankowski, and thank you, Director Hayes. I don't think my colleagues covered a lot of things, so I don't have a whole bunch of questions. I just want to thank you for your service and thank you for answering the emails that I know I send you, so I imagine those are times 14. Just one thing that I don't know if this is what Alderman Browning was referring to. We did pass some legislation last year or last session that would allow the city to do special tax bills and liens on some of these fines and fees. So I know we're still waiting to hear from the city councilor's office. We request that they hire additional staff. And then the building division also hired 2 additional staff just for the enforcement. So I know we probably shouldn't collect, put all our eggs in one basket. But hopefully that will be able to assist with some of the collections. What do you mean?
Fines and fees onto the building.
Right, but it's forestry fees are included. Forestry fees are included. You do send over the fines and fees related to you do send that amount over to the building division, right? Or you send it over to somebody who's tracking it.
Yeah, it got filed under building, and then we're trying to separate those.
Right.
So that we could see line item for forestry.
Right, but just to clarify, you all track or at least do the initial fines that we are trying to collect eventually.
We don't send a fine, we bill for our services.
Right, so that's in that the vacant bills that we're trying to. Right. I don't really have any other questions other than that. Thank you, Commissioner Jankowski.
Thank you.
Alderman Devotie.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. It's nice to see you.
Same here.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
absolutely. I just have, I think, 2 very brief subjects or questions to ask. I noticed with respect to the division that there was a request on fleet rental and leases. The request was about $240,000. Looks like the budget proposal was $100,000. What types of equipment did you have in mind that you're going to have to go without as it now stands?
These are just pickup trucks we rent and we lease, and it just gets our staff. It's mainly for weed control. So just getting our staff out into the wherever they need to go. And so if we max out of our on 80 utilities, limited term utility workers, we would need a lot more trucks to get people throughout the city.
This is my ignorance, so if you'll bear with me for a moment. I think in my 3-4 weeks on the job, if there is any question that I've gotten hit up with, it entails tree trimming.
Yep.
Right? Or taking down dead trees. For purposes of the budget, and I know that there is a list or matters in the queue, but could you educate us for the purpose of the budget, what you need to make, what your division needs to make a significant hole in what seems to be a pretty large list?
Yeah, I think one thing we would love, and I don't think this is for the budget division, but our tree trimmers need to be paid a wage that's comparable to other cities or even the private industry. So if we could get that, I'm sure we could fill those vacancies and hiring more tree trimmers. But on the other side, with our contractors, if we wanted to add, I think there was like, we were talking about the ash tree program. That seems to be running smoothly. We're coming kind of to the end of that program. But I think if we put more money toward contractors in trimming trees and removing trees, then we could hire, we could add more money to our current contractor, or we could hire other contractors.
And am I right that the contracting services fall under professional services?
It was under capital funding, where the money comes for our tree trimming program.
And again, I'm looking at the request, and it was right at $2 million. Looks like the proposal came back at about 1.5. what kind of services would you use if you had access to that $500,000?
I'm a little confused on your question, but the professional services, we used all that our weed control and cutting. So capital money is what we use to remove trees and trim trees.
Understand, and I guess, and again, I'm the new guy, so maybe I'm blowing this here, but it looks like there was a request for a certain amount of money, and in the actual budget, it came short of about $500,000. Would those services, those contractual services, are those aimed at doing weed clearance, or are they aimed also at trimming trees?
The professional services in the 1,000 account for forestry, that's aimed at weed control.
That's a great question.
You got to come up to the mic, Director.
Yes. So that's a great question. If we had professional services, when you think of that, it's synonymous with contractors. In the capital that you mentioned, and Alan did, and we probably both did earlier, about $500,000 for ash, $500,000 for trees that are dead. 4 or 5 years ago, we got the unbelievable decision to consider tree removals as a capital expense. Heretofore, 4 years ago, it never was allowed. So once we got that as capital spending, folks said that's a service, that's not but we got it passed, we've been doing it ever since. We were given $1 million, and they said, what can you do with it? We said, we'll remove 2,000 trees that are dead in about 1.5 years, and we did that, a little longer than we wanted. So to answer your question, Alderman, if we get another 500,000, we would put that to removal of dead trees that you hear from your constituents and are the scorn of this.
Sure. I mean, you know my background is an injury lawyer, so something like that $1.5 million judgment in South St. Louis, I mean, that's one of those things that kind of sticks in my craw, as I know it does yours, right? I get it. When we talk about those services, how many trees could be cut down with $500,000 contracted out?
Sure, sorry to interrupt. Probably about 1,000 is what we estimate. And we can give you the numbers of where we are in the hopper in terms of removals to be done and trims to be done. Forestry, if you think of forestry staff, we try to handle most of the removals, the trims, because we have a lot of untrained staff and they just never had any experience. When we're doing the removals, the true hazards, the 48-inch diameter sit in front of your house,
sure, which
I know the case you're referring to, those are contractual services, paid a lot more money and very skilled, trained trimmers. So I would venture a guess, we could take out about 1,000 trees roughly with $500,000.
And again, just to provide me with some context, Director, how deep would you say our list is? So if that $500,000 could take care of 1,000 of those 48-inch trees, diameter trees, how deep is our list?
Sure, that's a great question. Alan, I'm maybe putting you on the spot. Maybe it's a subsequent to this meeting piece of data, but do you know offhand how many removals we have at the moment? He does, but he may not know right this second.
No, sure.
Yeah, we had, let me think here, 32.
Good for you for answering that right off the top of it.
It was, yeah. I want to say it was like 3,000 removals that we have on the docket right now. Not 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
Say 30. Wow.
And 7,000 trims. So that's what we know of as like today. And that's, I could give you the exact number if I could get on my city work.
A ballpark does it. Very much appreciated. And thank you both.
Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. You know, I'll give all the flowers, but I'll keep it short so we can be good on time. You know, just anytime I send an email, you and many others in the department are just really good at responding back. Just a few questions. So I'm just on the same list, and to clarify, so technically right now, professional services is what you're using for the weed trimming, and the capital is where you guys use the money for the tree trimming. But say in a perfect world, if the alderman from the, Fifth Ward came with an amendment for $500,000 for that professional service line item, and ENA said, yay, they'll accept it. You could be able to use that $500,000, even though it's in professional services, to do the tree trimming for about those additional 1,000 trees. That sound about right?
Yeah, that's what I would understand. I don't see why I wouldn't.
A couple questions that I have, and hate to be like the bad guy, start off with the flowers for all the great work that you guys do in one of my favorite departments. But I just want to make sure, because I think we're trying something different on this committee to make sure that as much as we can do from this budget committee and move money around to support our departments, want to be able to do that, but want to make sure it's done so that it don't come back as a hiccup or Paul Payne back at us. So I see in 2025, just in the forestry division, I guess in total, requested about 110 employees and was able to only occupy about 96 of those employees. Sound about right?
Correct.
Okay, and in the general fund, when we get to tree trimmers, in 2025, you guys requested 13, but only was able to get 4 in the door. Knowing that tree trimming is important, it looks like you requested 5 this budget cycle, and the director only gave you 3.
In 2025, we had 29 tree trimmers.
Okay, so
And the request is, you got to look at that tree trimmer trainee too.
Okay, so the tree trimmer training in 2025. So the tree trimmer was 13, the tree trimmer training was 10. So it puts us about 23. And then when you move into the 11 account, was requested additional 2 and didn't feel that. But just staying in the general fund, you said roughly about 26 was requested. And so what is the difference between the tree trimmer and the tree trimmer trainee?
Yeah, I don't like when they separate that. A tree trimmer trainee can only be a tree trimmer trainee for 1 year. It's a beginning program. A tree trimmer, you have to have 1 year experience as a tree trimmer. A tree trimmer trainee, you don't have to have any experience in the green industry at all. So we can hire you on. It was just a way to get people in the door, and then we train you, and either you make it to tree trimmer or you fail your working test period.
Okay. And out of those 3 things, I know Alderman Browning had asked, if you could get in a perfect world, what are those employees you needed? You said either tree trimmer, utility worker, or I want to say construction, maybe equipment operator, 1 or 2. Are those the right ones that?
Yeah. There was like I believe there's 11 and 15 employees. There's 6 heavy equipment operators, 4 construction equipment operators, and 5 utility workers. That's the crew we were asking to run the debris program for forestry, so we could pick up all the brush and grass that we leave on the street.
Okay. And do you feel comfortable if this budget committee was able to restore those positions? And we know how the city is we don't pay our workers enough, but could be able to maybe fill those positions.
Yes, I feel like we can fill those positions.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for forestry. If anybody don't have any other ones. Nobody looks like burning heart. We appreciate you so much, Commissioner, and thank you for all the great work that you do for the forestry department.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time.
All right, next up, we will go with parks. And just for the record, it looks like forestry makes up about 41% of the budget for the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Division. And then parks makes up about 44% of that, who is the Commissioner Hagelman is the Commissioner of Parks. So whenever you get ready, or if you just want to jump straight into questions, you just let me know which way you want to go, and we'll proceed on.
So my name is Kim Hagley, the Park Commissioner.
And just tilt that a little bit to you. You can just turn, there you go. Or hold it either way. I think that's fine. We can hear you.
So I have reached out to all of you. Basically, I did a lot of my negotiations with Paul Payne early on. So he was pretty good to me. But with Paul, you got to give up something to get something. So, and I understand that. But he did remove 2 utility workers from my budget. So when you got your budget, while I was watching it, I often do, I was like, oh, dang, I'm missing 2 utility workers. And utility workers are the backbone of our department. They are the ones that make things happen. And I currently have 32 positions in my budget. According to the report that Paul published, it says there's 23 occupied. That's always a moving target, and this year he was only going to fund 30 positions. When you think about 30 utility workers for 110 parks, that's not a lot of people. And that's not just mowing and trimming, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. That's mowing, trimming, prepping ball fields, striping them, snow call, open, closing, cleaning bathrooms, delivering picnic tables and trash cans and bin wagons and tents. So our staff do more than just cut grass. So Paul likes me to give up per performance in order to get something. And when I asked for the $313,000 to mow Crondelet, my contention is if those people only mowed grass, I could probably do that. But since there's so many other things involved, that makes that very hard to do. Also, a contract is at a higher rate than what we pay our employees. So I'm really, you're really cutting into labor when you start to look at it from that standpoint. But I did reach out to you. I asked Paul if I could take the $78,000 that the utility workers would make and take that out of my per performance. Since the budget had already gone through, I sent that email to all of you, and I also sent it to the Director of Operations. I have not sent it to E&A. It's basically a transfer of funds. It's not costing, I'm not adding anything to the budget. So I would respectfully request that go through. I also did lose one mechanical maintenance worker. Those are hard to fill. I've been having better luck with Rankin and working with them, and then the plan is to work through them on my own to try and build a relationship to get some of the students coming right out of Rankin to come to the city. And then the only other thing, like I said, that I'm missing out on is the $313,000 to try and cut contractually Crondelet Park so that we can spend more times in the individual neighborhood parks. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Clearly, you're not new to this. You're true to this because you know that, like you say, Budget Director Paul Payne always wants to, as I've heard stories, you have to give something up. No one walks in with a golden list and think that our budget director is not going to be like, oh, no, we're going to make some cuts. So did receive your email. I think the email was sent to all members May 8th around 4:58. I've been in conversations with the mayor's office and think that, since you're just moving money around, I don't think that's going to be an issue. After talking with Mr. Julian from the mayor's office, we'll work with Jim to make sure that that money is just transferred from per performance back into utility so that we can make that through this budget committee so that E&A can adopt it so that we can use those funds to restore for your utility workers. So that is nothing you should have to worry about.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. It's always easy when money is within the budget. Paul loves that, just move it somewhere else. But when you ask him for more, he gets into scratching his head. With that, we'll move on to Alderwoman Sanier from the 7th Ward to ask questions.
Hi, Director Hackley.
How are you?
I am good. I just, obviously I always give you your flowers. And honestly, I was hoping one that I would see in this budget would be some type of support position for yourself, an assistant or something. I am really amazed that you have the ability to to me, you're kind of like managing all things that are actively happening in the field. And I know how many requests and follow-ups you get from me. So I can only imagine how many you're getting from other people. So when I think of one person having to manage all of that and send your own emails, do your own scheduling, it seems just a lot of demand. And I know it didn't make it into this one, but I really would support you getting, even if it was just an assistant that could help you with scheduling and could help you stay on top of emails. I think you're so good to the city, but I really want to see us set up sustainable models of leadership and staffing. And I don't feel like right now you're, I just imagine that you're stretched very far. So hopefully that request, I know you had your own conversation with Paul Payne. You guys have kind of talked. It looks like we're moving in that direction, but I just wanted to make sure that I put on record that whatever it would look like for you, we start with what we can get. So an assistant is great, but just moving forward, like whatever we could do, and not only just thinking of yourself, but also thinking of whoever might come after you. You've been in a role for such a long time. I'm sure you know what burnt out you've experienced, what high demand you've experienced. I can imagine when you go on vacation and you come back, how many things have piled up and how that might discourage you from taking needed time off to handle personal matters or just to fill your cup. So I'm glad to see that you kind of got an assistant, and that's a start, but I definitely, like my personal ask would be just for you to think about overall sustainability, in your position and what it would look like, again, even if it's not just for yourself, but moving forward to set someone up for success and to make it so that it was just a little bit more of a bearable load, because obviously overall staffing in the field is going to continue to be a challenge. So what can we do to support the folks that have to fill in those gaps and make sure those gaps are filled?
So I did. You won't see it directly in the budget, only because I gave up to get. I did hire Denise Blanchard. She's been with me about a year, and she has taken a lot of the office, the personnel issues, hearings and things like that. So yes, she's been phenomenal. But I also made another change that leads to what you're talking about. So in my budget, I asked for a construction and maintenance manager, and that is on the personnel schedule for me on page 149. And so I'm not afraid to move people around. So what I did was I eliminated an engineering technician 2 position, which is you may know him, Michael Scott. He's in the field a lot. And then I also gave up a plumber position in order to get a construction maintenance manager. And what that will do for me is, right now, Michael reports to me. And what I'd like to have is this construction maintenance manager who is the go-between, so that I can manage overall projects, but between the construction maintenance manager and Michael Scott, the engineering technician, they can keep and get the projects moving faster. And you're always very good and very gracious with me concerning updates and things like that. And I do know that is a shortfall. But like you said, I had my first vacation with the city last summer, and I went 2 weeks, and it was not good when I came back. So it's there, and I have I know what my shortfall is, so I'm making changes this budget year to hopefully keep those projects moving, be able to give you guys more updates on a regular basis, make sure things don't fall through the cracks, make sure things aren't sitting in the comptroller's office too long or wherever, and what that schedule is so that we can be more proactive instead of letting you get hit by your constituents at meetings, and then you're taking the heat, and we don't want that.
And that's okay.
I know, but yeah.
Yeah, it comes with the territory. I think that's one of the things when I was in Mr. Devote's position that you get adjusted to the quickest. And I just explained to people that city government moves at the pace of molasses, and we all are doing the best we can. I wanted to get into the deferred maintenance part of your budget. There's a total of $750,000 in capital funds that has been allocated to address many of the SULAR markets, like deferred capital needs, and I know you guys just do some of that work. What are some of the specific projects that are planned around this, and could you speak about how they will enhance the market's operations and the visitor experience?
Sure. So we actually have $4.4 million. We just, that comes from a use tax fund. We just found out about a month ago that we got another $1 million, so there's a total of $2 million there. But we had to have it encumbered before June 30th. So we've bid it all out. We're there. It's sitting in the comptroller's office for an asset number, and then we'll be good to go. And what that includes is tuck pointing the whole building. And then the other contract we have is for roofing, siding, soffit, fascia, and painting. And then we have another $2.4 million that we have a little more breathing room to spend that doesn't have to be encumbered, and we're working on getting bids right now for electric and plumbing. So the idea is we're working from the outside in to stabilize the building itself. Prior to that, about 2 years ago, we did $1.5 million for a boiler system. It was original to the building. So we are making progress. I think we're going to start to see more of that as it in the next year. You're really going to start to see some improvements that people can see.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just a great focus. I just want to kind of put on record that focus there on the markets. I think that especially given some of the things like the costs rising the way they are in grocery stores, that a lot of people are leaning more into the market space, because honestly, it is not that big of a price difference these days between groceries in one place or the other. But honestly, you really answered a lot of my questions by just explaining your staffing and how you move things around. And I look forward to hearing that hopefully some of the changes just result in everybody in you all's department that I'm sure is like stressed really thin, just having a little bit more capacity and hopefully being able to really enjoy their time off and not dealing with burnout, and us building like more sustainable, organizational charts that allow for efficiency of both the office and overall impact and services for residents. Thank you.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no questions for you at this time. Just want to express my appreciation for you and everything you do. As I mentioned, our parks are all wonderful and beautiful, and I think that it's a testament to the work you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Velasquez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Higley, and thank you. I appreciate all the I emailed you today. You at least probably once a week, or hopefully once every other week. I just had a quick question that maybe I'm not sure if you addressed it here. So I'm just looking at the kind of back to, I think, what we're all focusing on is personnel and salaries and whatnot. You have 60,000 budgeted for last year and for this year, but I see in fiscal year 24, there's closer to $647,000, which is so my two questions are, do you have an idea of what we spent in fiscal year 25 on salary, on overtime? And then just, is that 60,000 that is budgeted, is that realistic?
So what happens is the money that's in the per performance employees, if I'm not can't hire enough seasonal employees, then that money is taken. If you notice from the previous fiscal year in 2024, if you look at the per performance, that went down because I did transfers to cover the overtime out of the per performance.
Okay, that's helpful. So it probably will be more, but it won't be from that. Hopefully.
Right.
I mean, hopefully
Right
we,
now, they've been offsetting one another, and I've always come out in the black, so knock on wood.
that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Alderman Devotie?
Director, I don't have any questions, but I would like to, again, thank you. As I'm learning the ropes, you have been one of the most generous with your time, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you and your crew do
Thank you.
throughout those 104 parks.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Commissioner. You know how I feel about you. You're amazing. I appreciate all the work that you do. We've done a lot of good work. Also can echo the Alderman from the 5th. You know, being here within 2 years, there's a lot to learn. There's no blueprint to how to become an alder. And when it comes to parks, especially as we're around this season, they start growing and events happen, and people want to make sure that those parks are cut for those events. And anytime, I was able to pick up the phone to give you a call about the bathrooms, whatever it was, you were quick to respond and have been very helpful on some major upgrades that we've done in the 14th Ward around some parks. I really appreciate. Outside of the performance move around, which, like I say, working with the mayor's office already on that amendment, so shouldn't be an issue. Is there any other, giving and taking with Paul? Is there any other maybe positions that you could see be helpful that you would be able to hire on to help the department that you wasn't granted in your budget, if there was like one or two key ones?
It's not so much new positions, it's the pay of the current positions. So I'm not able to hire plumbers because you can come out of the union hall making 80, 90 grand a year. My plumber starts at about $38,000, $39,000 a year. Even if they have journeyman status and in a Department of Labor certification, they're only making $49,000. So I don't necessarily need more positions. I just need to be able to fill the positions that I've had. And we are working with the mayor's director of operations. So we actually had a meeting this morning to talk about that because we do have some other issues with utility workers who are our backbone, but they now make more than a trades helper. So you have to be a utility worker. In order to be a trades helper, you have to be a utility worker for 2 years or have experience. And that position pays $1,300 something biweekly. A unskilled, basically labor or utility worker is now making over $1,500 biweekly. So again, I think I can do well with what I have if I can get that pay in line.
Well, thank you for that. I think usually don't hear most departments say they don't need more, but you do hear every department saying figure out ways to pay our workers more. I know there's a pay study that will be released soon, but I think that'll be an ongoing conversation that this budget committee and Paul and all of us ask of, are we in a place where we cut vacancies and add more money to salaries? And how do we start to lift the rising tide to make sure that, we can never be super competitive with the private sector, but how do we make sure that it's a close to livable wage so that we can bring people in the door? So I appreciate all that you do.
Yeah, I think when you're negotiating with unions, which we have, but then they get these huge increases, but then they continue to get the 3% and the 1.5% that other positions that aren't union are only getting. So it's kind of like you got to be one or the other, type thing. So I think that really hurt us. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we will have Okay, next we'll have recreations come on up. And just state your name for the record, and you can proceed.
Thank you. I am Joaquina Calian, Commissioner, Recreation Commissioner.
Did you have anything, or you want to just dive on into your numbers?
I'll dive right into the questions.
All right, I'd like to hear that. All right, we'll just start right on with Alderwoman from the 7th, Sanye.
Good afternoon, Director. I don't have a lot of questions necessarily for you. I feel like a lot of the budget just made sense. I did notice that there appears, and this is a very specific question, so if we needed to answer it offline, you can. And the ward I represent, we don't necessarily have any pools or anything like that, so that's a very different matter. But in regards to the 3 recreation centers that do have pool renovations and repairs coming, do you know which specific facilities are being targeted and what the timeline are for the improvements?
So we have 4 indoor pools, and right now, Woes has just gone through renovations.
Just give it a twist to speak a little bit into it. There you go. Take it off, however.
I'll just hold it. Okay, so right now we have 4 indoor pools. At the point of right now, we are renovating Woes. Woes has gone through and had some upgrades. Tandy just finished getting a new boiler. We have a new boiler that went at Woes. We got money through parks to help get our boilers fixed in all of the pools. We also have new painting inside the pools, and also we've added a new motor to a pool at 12th and Park. Right now, that is what we're waiting on to be installed. Once it's installed, it'll be back up and running. Tandy as well went through a lot of major work, and now it's up and running again. Then we also have, I think that's all. Tandy, Woes, Cherokee, and Cherokee is down. The only reason Cherokee is closed right now is because we're actually doing facility renovations. So it's getting an upgrade with floors, the bathrooms are getting upgraded, the locker rooms, the gym is getting ready to be redone, and a lot of our painting and things like that to make the building look a lot better. We also have a lot of tuck pointing that's going on to the buildings with that is going to happen at Cherokee, 12th and Park, Gamble, in preparation for getting new roofs on the building.
Thank you. I didn't ask about that. The Cherokee Recreation Center is technically not in the area, but I get a ton of emails, so I actually got a very detailed email. I don't know if it was from you, but it was from someone that was just responding to a constituent. A bunch of constituents were inquiring about like why this is closed, and I think because that ward doesn't have an alder right now, they kind of just to me, and I got a very detailed response from, I can't remember who it is, but thank you for whoever sent that response because they explained what you just did. I also did notice that the Buddha Recreation Center appears to be slated to receive about $2,500 for major projects, materials, and supplies. And it does say Friends of Buddha Recreation Center. Could you talk about just that programming and what these entities do and what those funds are intended for?
Okay, so the Buddha each center has their own what we call Friends account. So people inside the community, anybody that wants to, can donate to those accounts. And what we do is we use the money for them to do whatever type of program. This summer, Buddha will be using that to add into field trips for the kids during summer camp, as well as making sure any type of upgrade that they want, maybe equipment that doesn't work anymore, they will purchase, so extra balls, things like that. So that's what that funding is for. Each one of the rec centers have what we call Friends of accounts.
Thank you. This is my last question. It's around community programming. Just curious about, thinking of when we get into summertime, it's inevitable that we're going to get to young people are doing X, Y, Z city and, doing these types of crimes. And, we will see those headlines shortly. It happens every year. And I know that there's been partnerships in the past between the city and kind of recreation centers to provide additional youth programming and things of that manner. Could you just talk a little bit about anything that you guys have planned for the summer rotation? And also very curious about how you intend to make sure that those programmings are distributed throughout the city equitably and that, a majority of the city's neighborhoods and wards are able to get access to the community programming.
Okay, so with our community programming, we got coming up is summer camp. Summer camp is going to be running for 10 weeks. It starts June 1st and goes through August the 16th. It is Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Afterwards, we will still have programming going on. So if right now we're getting ready to do soccer, football is coming, cheer, baseball and T-ball. All of those things are going on right now and will continue throughout the summer. We've also partnered with Serena Muhammad and her team to be providing summer after-hour events on the weekends, and we'll be having we started off with some of the team parties that we did last year, so we're going to try and do some of those type of programming again, but not just parties, but open it up for staff to be there for kids to come in the evening and participate in our gaming or having some type of basketball tournament. Or last year we did the foam party. So just trying to do things that will keep the kids in and off the streets. That will start in June as well, and it will be on Fridays, and it will start from 7 p.m. and go to 11 p.m.
Thank you. And when people apply for summer programming or any of the other programming, is it specific recreation centers that be participating in that? Have you guys chosen locations throughout the city? Are there key how will the programming? I guess I'm asking, how are we making sure that all of the city is being included and getting access to that programming, and how, if you're looking at from a south, north, central, standpoint, where are those points where they will be going? Is it pretty equitable to the different neighborhoods throughout the city?
Yes. So all 7 recreation centers will have summer camp. The 4 centers that we'll be using for the team parties is what we're basically calling them. We try to do north and south. So we are using Cherokee this year as well as 12th and Park, and then we'll be using Tandy and Gamble for our other 2 centers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you. No, I don't actually have any recreation centers in the 9th Ward. I have one just outside of it. And so I just have one question that's really generally about building maintenance. The nearest recreation center in the 9th Ward is the one on Union, and it's a gorgeous building, but I'm sure very expensive to maintain. Can you remind me, did Recreation get any money from the American Rescue Plan Act dollars for building maintenance or anything like that?
For this, okay, I'm trying to think.
Is that a director question?
No, yes.
Go right ahead. Are you referring to Union and Thecla, the Demetrius Johnson Foundation?
Yes.
Yes. So Mr. Johnson passed away a couple years ago, as we all know, DJ. He had a lease with the city of St. Louis. That lease did expire. The SLDC put out a request for proposal. There was one respondent. They are looking at the building. To answer your question, Alderman, the city and our department received no funding. There is no existing lease. So we essentially have no role whatsoever in that building. It is a magnificent building. But if we can give you a tour, if you go in there and you haven't been in there a while, it's spectacular, but it is in massive need of countless things. I'd love to see it restored to its original glory.
Thank you. And so just to clarify, that's owned by the city but operated by the foundation, but the lease is expired now, so we're just owning it?
To my knowledge, the foundation is defunct. It is no longer in service. So we were in direct communication with Mr. Johnson's family after he passed, and there was no interest to provide any services in that building. So it's a vacant building for the last 2 years. And since it is city-owned, we've worked closely with SLDC to provide them access. Essentially, they have keys to the building now anyway. So we've done a lot of work over there in that building for years, just as Catch Can emergency repairs, but it's no longer affiliated with our department. Hopefully somebody will take it over. It's spectacular.
Thank you for the clarification. That is just something I was curious about. I drive past it a lot, and I was just curious. I don't have any other questions for you. Just appreciate the work you do. Again, have seen the impact our rec centers make in our communities, and when I can go to one of these and just see it full of activity and see kids playing in them instead of doing stuff they shouldn't be on the streets. This is all about our multifaceted approach towards our city and keeping people not just out of trouble, but also having fun. Yeah. And so I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Velazquez.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Devotie.
I also don't have any questions, but thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Also just want to echo, the work that you do and the safe haven that rec centers can be for young people. We will probably see the articles and this of young people hanging out downtown, but the reality is if there's nothing for them to do, there's no place for them to go. It may be, as us being older, look at it as, dumb and naive or stupid that they shouldn't be doing that. But once upon a time, we all was young doing things that we shouldn't have been doing, and we was in those same positions. So it's just, I know that the previous administration really used, and I hope this administration too, really use these rec centers as a place during nighttime for young people to have somewhere to go because, again, with funding being cut everywhere from local government to state government to federal government, things for young people to do just don't exist. As me being somebody who's 31, like they used to when I was younger. We always want to talk about this generation or this generation. There's less and less things for our young people, and rec centers serve a really amazing, safe place for our young people to go just to be kids and to do crazy things so they know not to do it when they get older. So thank you for your leadership. And I do. Is there anything that in your budget that you requested but didn't receive that you could see as being helpful to your department?
Yes, I did have a rec leader that was in my budget that I had previous years, but it was cut this year. The rec leader is a very important part of our rec center because there are our full-time staff that's there for 8 hours. They help make sure that the kids have a program. They're there to make sure that we're keeping them encouraged. They're there for support. They're also there as a counselor. They do a lot of things that's in the center every day that we need. And we don't have a lot of them anyway at each center. We could always use more rec leaders, and to have one cut, that was very devastating to our budget.
Just to make sure I'm looking at the right thing, it looks like Fund 1502 Rec Leader. It looks like...
This is out of our 1,000 budget.
Okay, I see recreational supervisor. Okay, okay, I see where you. Okay, you had.
We normally have 5, and we requested 5 again, and we were given 4.
Okay, last year you was only able to fill the 4, so if we brought it back up to 5, could you fill that 5?
Yes, well, the reason why it shows that it's a vacant is because I had someone that resigned. And before we could get the TO fixed to show, we were actually in the process of hiring for when we got the budget saying it was being removed.
So if I'm just hearing you right, in FY fiscal 25, you did have all 5 positions filled. Someone resigned during the snapshot of the budget, which makes it show 4, but you are capable of
hiring. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, next we will have Brightside come on up. And just state your name. You may have to pull the mic off, it's a little funky today. And state your name and proceed, or we will jump right on in with questions like we did the recreation or
All right.
breaks.
Thank you. My name is Mary Lou Green. I'm with Operation Brightside, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All righty, thank you so much, Commissioner. We're going to start in order of seniority, starting with Alderwoman Sanye.
Thank you for being here today. Appreciate all the work you all do. I don't have any questions for you.
All right, Alderman Browning. We will proceed on with Alderwoman Velazquez. I'll come back to
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Devoti.
I don't have any questions either.
Thank you.
We're making this too easy, right?
We're all good.
Alderman Browning, did you have any questions for Brightside before I know you was talking, we went through the list and I didn't want to skip you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you again for the super responsiveness. I had an issue recently with graffiti and got it cleaned up, and just want to encourage anyone who's watching to report things to CSB so that it can be routed to you all, because when you know about it, you get to it quickly, and it helps beautify our neighborhoods, but it also helps remove a dangerous element. In this case, what I had reported was gang graffiti, and it was, an example of someone tagging their territory to, for whatever means that they or intentions they had, and getting that cleaned up was a nice way to send a message back that this is not their territory, it's ours.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
All right, out of all of the divisions within parks, this is probably one of the easiest because it looks like you requested $435,000. Mainly seems like the difference came out of employment, retirement, but everything else from salaries to insurance, life insurance, health, and it looks like everything you asked for, you seem to have received.
Yes, this is CDA funded, and we have a $370,000 allocation, and we're asking the director of CDA, and we have a verbal commitment to cover the other $65,000. And it's a little confusing because over the last 2 years, we had a $185,000 CDA grant, but then it was supplemented with ARPA funds. So you'll see in some of those, the actual costs are confusing in, I think it was FY24. It looks like it jumped, but it was because it was broken into 2 different grants.
Gotcha. It looked like you asked for full-time employees, you asked for 3, and you requested that 3 and have money for paid performance, so.
Yes, we do a lot of work with 7 people.
Yes, okay. It looks like the director has to want to add on something to Brightside operation.
Yes. Thank you. If the only negative impact of Mary Lou not receiving the $60,000 from CDA, which are federal funds, she would have to cease graffiti eradication services in August. So this is critical that we get the $60,000 for her 4 foremen and her 4 performance utility workers who do graffiti removal citywide. So we are really looking forward to getting that $60,000, if you will. Thank you.
Gotcha. And then is those, I guess, in conversations with CDA that it sounds confident that the 60,000, okay, that it'll be brought on over to Brightside?
Yes.
Okay. Because if we need to get on.
Just recently. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if we need to get on Director Helfer Noel, we will get on his head to make sure that that's 60,000. But if there is good faith right now, we will let the conversations happen before we have to show up and show out.
Sounds like a good plan.
All right. Am I missing anybody, Director, from the department?
Bob Ray was unavailable. This will probably take 2 minutes. Soulard Market is under our management overview in the director's office. It's about I don't have it handy, but about $375,000 budget. Pretty much just about the same as it is currently in FY '25. That market is run by a market manager and 2 custodians, which is really unique and great. I think we're at about 96% occupancy. We had a couple vendors leave us recently, and we put out the word that we want proposals. We just reviewed 10 proposals last week. My point being, people, even though that market needs a lot of help, and thanks to Kim and her team and Board of Public Service, people want to be at that market to try to get established. So I'm biased, but it's my favorite market in the region, and we really enjoy running it.
Once upon a time, it used to be in my old district when I was a state rep, and I just know how critical that is, and I know the great work that Bob Ray does for that market. I was able to tour the inside and didn't know that there was a gym at the top of the building, so that maybe is another upgrade later down the line, but it is a beautiful gym that is up there that is kind of really cool to see. And it looks like in the budget, you usually don't also see this. They requested $367,000, and they actually got more than they requested. So
correct.
Okay.
And as a side note, Bob did challenge me to a game of basketball recently. So we played in that vacant gym up there, but it was just horse due to my old age. I couldn't play one-on-one.
Oh, okay.
It went very well.
Is there a recording of that?
Much to your chagrin, there is not.
Oh, dang it. Okay. One last question. I do see Tower Grove Park is in here under parks. If you can just maybe talk about that. Maybe that's Grant or Tower Grove Parks. Why is that in the Parks Department separately?
Yes, a decision was made many years ago prior to my tenure to include them in getting funding. I'm not sure the specific tax off the top of my head, but they get typically 700, maybe whatever it is, 800,000. That is city property, as you probably know, but it's the only park in the city of St. Louis not maintained by our division. Bill Reiniger is the park director there, so maybe 15 years ago, it was, since it's city property, they should get funding, and they do.
Got it. Well, if there is no more questions from the committee, seeing none, I will let you and your commissioners free. Thank you so much, Director, for being here.
Thank you. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity and all your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. All right, with that, we will continue on down the list. Any acknowledgement or written testimony?
We have none.
All righty. Announcements, we will start back up with the Budget Committee tomorrow at 9:30. I do not have the list of who will be here in front of us, but it is online. Also, just want to let the committee members know that, and I will make sure all committee members see the email before it's sent out. I will be writing an email as the chair of the committee to request a special E&A hearing the second week of June, either that Monday or Tuesday. So any changes that this committee makes, that we can have a follow-up meeting that Thursday, which will be June the 12th, to vote out any amendment changes so that we can eventually discuss that board bill on the floor, which will most likely need to be suspended from second reading to perfect it so that we can get the budget bill done in time. And tomorrow we will hear from the city councilor. Tomorrow will be a light day, city councilor and ITSA. So with that, Madam Clerk, please make note that the Alderwoman from the 12th is not excused for the 5th day. And I would take a motion to adjourn. Motion made by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th to adjourn. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.